Check one, two, check one, two.
Michael, I just wanted to check and make sure that I sound good and the sound works.
Yep, you sound great, Chairwoman
Okay.
Curry. Good
Thank
morning.
you. Oh, good morning, Favor. Thank you. You let me know, everything's working well here. I think we might have, Erica and myself are gonna be on Zoom today that I know of, right?
Yeah, Michael mentioned Denise also. Yeah, McCray Scott is online right now.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you.
Xavier, can you all hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
Okay, good. I've got a new computer and I'm still trying to figure out how to work it. It's my first time using a Mac. I usually have a HP.
That's a big switch from HP
Yeah,
to Mac. Big
yeah,
switch.
it really is. How are you, Lillian?
I'm very good. It's good to see you. You and I are online today, I think. And
Yeah,
Erica as well.
I I've been having some issues with my knee.
Oh no.
I went in earlier this week and had an X-ray, and I'm hoping I don't have to have a knee replacement
Oh
because
no.
walking is starting to be a little difficult with me. As I
Mm.
say, getting old is not for the weak, but
Mm. It's just one though, right? Just
yeah,
one for
it's
one
just
A.
it's just one knee right now. I'm just hoping it's Arthur and nothing else. And maybe it
Mm.
can give me some injections and it'll,
Get better, yeah.
yeah.
Maybe that they'll be the gonna ask the sports medicine folks today some questions. I'm just kidding. It's just a joke for everybody online.
Well, I just got a referral to orthopedics over at the clinic, so they're going to check it out and make sure everything is not as serious as it could be.
Like if it's just arthritis and you
Yeah.
just manage it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm going to manage it because I don't want to be cut on. I
Oh
don't.
yeah, I agree. Director Wong, would you like to start? I think we have a quorum. Or would you like to wait for the councilman?
He's here.
Councilman is here. So
Oh,
able to begin.
Hi.
I have a bad view, so
So they look closer in case.
I need the camera to come in. All right. I think we're good. We have Commission Member Denise McCray Scott online as well. So I think we'll get started. So I'll turn it over to the director before we begin the meeting.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. One thing that we'll do, because the chair is online, I'll be helping to kind of take a look around the room to see if there are any comments desired by other commission members. So we're just going to help the chair today by either raising her hand or speaking up so that we can ensure that she can see what's happening in the room. With that, we'll jump into the preamble and the introduction about the procedures so that everyone is oriented to how proceedings will happen today. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law and section 101.021 of the Codified Ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conduct its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by voice vote. Recusals from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel in the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through proper channels have been considered. We've also received emails from those who have provided written comments on a particular matter. Proper channels for comments are listed below. Communication with members of this body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the Wednesday 12 p.m. deadline are collected by city planning staff and disseminated to the commission members prior to any scheduled meeting. Proper channels for public comments are listed in the bullet points below. Send an email, call, leave a message, or send a letter or drop off comments at City Hall. A little bit more about our proceedings for those who may be new to the process. The chair will call each agenda item, and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, the chair will ask the planning staff to summarize design review committee recommendations, staff reports, and any public comments received. The deadline for these public comments is noon on the Wednesday, as described earlier. They will be shared to the commission through Dropbox, and staff, we will also identify any members of the public present and scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff if applicable, and commission will begin deliberations and project review. Any commission member except the chair may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, can you call the roll?
Anthony. Luker.
Present.
Curry.
Present.
McCray Scott.
Present.
McKnight. Sergeant.
Present.
Slight.
Present.
Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a quorum. I thank everyone. I am also thank you for the grace for chairing online today for everybody here or who is on the Zoom. I'm on a much needed vacation, but this is so important. So I prefer to be there in person, but we'll manage through this together. So I really want to first thank the staff for all their incredible work and preparation for this meeting. The first item today is to approve the meeting minutes from the April 5th meeting, and those commission members who were in attendance can vote, and those who were not present should abstain. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the April 5th meeting? We have had them sent out in advance. They're also at the table in front of commission members in person.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Abstain.
Light,
Yes.
Motion carries. Okay, so we're gonna go to the first item on the agenda, which is a special public art presentation. And so we can go to the next slide. The first item is DF 2024-016. This is the Segal and Schuster Tribute Plaza. We're looking at the artwork only. This is seeking final approval at 300 Lakeside Avenue East. There are 4 people listed here. This is technically a design review matter, so I need to swear everyone in who will be speaking to this matter, either online or in the room. So what I'm going to do is read the swearing in, and then everybody please say aye individually after I swear everyone in. So do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
Aye. 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 Aye.
Okay. And then as you present, so we're going to turn it over. I don't know if the director has any comments in advance, but as you get up to present, if you could please state your name as you go. Director Wong, would you like to say anything first, or should they go ahead?
I'll just talk a little bit about procedures because this is both a city and county project. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the various processes the team has and will go through. Because this is a new monument, the county has created the Monuments Commission through Cuyahoga County, and so they have presented once. We have Patrick Hewitt here from the county who will provide an update after your presentation. They will be here at Planning Commission today, and then also at Landmarks Commission for the city next Thursday. This is a project that has been in the works for some time to honor the legacy of Superman, and so I would ask the applicant to go ahead and proceed with your presentation. And then we'll have some additional staff report following your presentation.
Thank you, Director. My name is Ellis Katz. I'm with Project Management Consultants. I'm here representing the Huntington Convention Center of Cleveland on their behalf. I'm their owner's rep. The site of the convention center is the location for this monument. With me today is Nicholas Slaughterback. He is with Moody Nolan. He'll be the primary presenter today. Here for questions is the artist, David Deming, in the back. David, you might want to bring in the sculpture if you could. And then Gary Kaplan as well. He represents the Segal and Schuster Society. He's also be available for comments and questions. One of the models. Nick, go ahead.
All right.
Introduce yourself.
Yeah. Again, I'm Nick Slaughterback, Moody Nolan. Good morning, everybody. I hope everyone was as excited as we are to see this on the agenda today. As Ellis mentioned, this is going in at the southwest corner of the convention center site along Ontario and St. Clair. Philadelphia has Rocky Balboa, Milwaukee has the Bronze Fonz, and Cleveland, we want to bring the Man of Steel. So we've got a letter of intent the Segal and Schuster Society has created, which is kind of working over the licensing fees with DC Comics, with the convention center, talking about the repairs and the funding. We have gotten DC Comics approval. We've got their sign off from their Senior Vice President of Legal, to allow the statue in the site. And as for maintenance, we do have a detailed maintenance plan as to how to upkeep these monuments and statues. As for location, as we've mentioned, and I'm sure we're aware, it is located in the city of Cleveland. Right downtown, in fact, in between Public Square and the county courthouse. We do try to keep in mind that connection. As you can see at the site context, the aerial, we are that green postage stamp size site there, about 50 feet by 50 feet. Right now, you're seeing the convention center a little under construction. It'll be complete this summer. Though the site might still be a little inaccessible, well, it'll be complete as well. As you can see from Public Square, we do try to keep that view angle in mind, especially when we're trying to cite Superman. The old site, this is not what it looks like today, it's under construction, was pretty level green. It had a 2-foot retaining wall around it, which is covered up by the bushes you can see pictured. Another view from the opposite angle, you can see some bench seating and plantings. Previously, when this was brought before everybody, the convention center had a diagonal cut swath of concrete, which bisected the site and created 2 green spaces. The original comment when we presented this was to reduce the size of the non-permeable surfaces, create the corner stair, which we have, and add some greenery. In that greenery, we had some trees to add some verticality to that greenery, some benches, patio seating, and some light planting around. When this was brought before us, we started looking a lot more at how do we tell a story on this plaza with these characters, with these statues. On the lower level, along the streetscape, we are going to replace the benches where they're at. We're considering switching over to a backless bench to allow for viewing angles on either side, pushing the benches forward toward the sidewalk, and not shown here would be increasing the area of concrete around those benches to allow for movement around. On the upper part of the plaza, the 2-foot raised portion, we narrowed that concrete swath at the diagonal and created a transverse diagonal, creating an X shape across of permeable pavers. This permeable surface design was created in mind with the emblematic S shield that Superman is famous for. You can kind of see it on either side where we've cut it, mirrored it, and stretched it to connect those pieces. At the corner you're seeing at the lower left-hand side, that square is a phone booth sculpture, non-functional. Followed just north of that would be this statue here of Jerry Siegel, Joe Shuster, and Joanne Siegel. And then on the opposite corner of the swath of pavers would be an 18-foot high statue of Superman atop a blue plinth. We'll get to images in just a moment. We've also created the grassy areas on either side to allow for more movement around the site, more viewing angles. We are currently looking at extending this grassy area even a little bit more to allow for even further site movement. We did want to keep in mind the plantings right now are lower. I'll show in the next page. Lower plantings, trying to evoke a sense of cloudiness, softness. We're keeping in mind that these will change from spring through winter, how they'll look. Again, we're seeing an image of those pervious pavers and bench seating. There will be a angled sign display, which will kind of have a similar informational graphic to what is shown at the airport. That graphic, Gary is working with the Siegel Schuster Society to create a finalized product of that. It will tie into the Glenville neighborhood and allow people to know why Superman is so important to the city of Cleveland. For lighting, we will have 4 light posts, which will be sited on each corner of the site. Those on the lower level of the site will be 14 feet high. Those on the upper area will be 12 to create an even lighting plane. In addition, there will be 6 lights around Siegel Schuster statue, which are in-ground directional uplighting, and 2 directional uplights on Superman so that we are adequately lit at night. Getting a little bit more into the nitty-gritty here, we can see on detail 5, how we're kind of implementing these in-ground lighting with the pavers and the statue foundations. The statues will come in a little bit later after we've finished the plaza, just for timing wise. So we wanted to make sure we had a beautiful finished look. So we'll just repair and replace pavers when install occurs. But what I want to draw your attention to is the upper right-hand corner. What you can see is the procession of this story from right to left. What we're going to have is that phone booth will be, again, not operational, locked. And viewers will be able to see what appears to be the clothing of mild-mannered reporter Clark Kent strewn about. As we proceed to the left, the viewers will see Joe Schuster, Jerry Siegel, and Joanne pointing in awe, looking up at Superman as we move further. He flies toward, helping people. Again, Superman is going to be 18 foot tall, a little over to the tip of his cape. This will allow viewing angles from both inside the ballroom, full view of Superman, and from on top of the ballroom's addition, looking down on Superman. The plinth will be made out of, will be coated with an epoxy graffiti resistant paint, and the statue will be a matte stainless steel, hence the moniker. The Siegels and Schuster statue will be bronze and will be around 8 foot high, all said and done. The base of the statue will be of steel construction with a polished black granite to match the ballroom expansion. And the phone booth will be made out of stainless steel. It'll be a little over 8.5 feet high, sitting on a 2-inch concrete curb. And it will feature graffiti resistant glazing to make sure we don't have people trying to break in. It will be locked, so anybody who is confused about having a public phone won't be able to access it. And again, we're trying to keep that graffiti resistance ventilation in mind. And now we're kind of moving into what everybody kind of really wanted to see, the renderings. What we're viewing here is across the street looking down on that plaza. Here you can see as I move forward, we are at the corner of St. Clair and Ontario, moving toward the statues. And you can see in this view quite clearly how Superman interacts with that large ballroom window, and you can look down from atop on the roof terrace. Moving forward a little bit more, you can really see that story. Again, Clark Kent has heard trouble afoot with his super hearing. He's discarded his clothing and changed into his alter ego and flown toward justice and safety. We do realize that as you move around the site, because of the height of Superman, some of the best viewing angles will be at the lower portion, looking upward towards Superman. Again, you get a full view of what these statues in context tell that story. And we have a night shot. This is an artistic representation of what we're envisioning this. We do have photometrics if you need it to show that we will have adequate lighting. Again, this is an artistic interpretation. Really, when we are envisioning this too, we get a little excited. We're hoping that when we watch the next Browns game in a year or so from now, we'll be able to see this plaza and a flyby shot. We're very excited about this project. I don't know if you can tell by my candor here. I am thrilled to be a part of it myself. Superman is not only very important to myself, but many, many people in the city of Cleveland. If not for two young men from our city sitting together and creating this character, we would not have the cultural landscape we have today. Superman is arguably one of the greatest cultural contributions to American pop culture in all of American history, I would argue. And again, Cleveland should be extremely proud of that. And we try to treat the site with a level of reverence to that. So that ends my part of the presentation. Open to questions.
Okay, commission members, I think we're going to open it up for questions. I actually have a couple, but I'll hold. And go ahead.
Before we do that, if I could, we have a few letters of support. We have one letter of support from Downtown Cleveland Inc., who's a nonprofit organization. And Madam Chair, if you do want to hear from staff or the county representative, we can also do that at some point as well.
Okay, well, let's maybe first hear from commission members, unless there's something different to add at this point. If you could go back to to one of the renderings, I do have a question. Go back to the Davy, this one. This one's fine. So my question is, first, I assume this is this is a working entrance into the convention center, right? I mean, people are allowed to enter from this side every day, right? Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, good. Just because sometimes as buildings change, you know, they then close and only have one entrance and they use the other side, but I'm hoping this is an entrance. My question is, the choice of, for me, the different sort of colorations, the kind of bronze for the people, the silver for Superman, and the blue for the armature. In the day view, to me, your eye just goes to the you know, the pole or the holding him up, and he seems to be, when you're walking down the street or when you're coming, and be washed out by the silver of the building. So in just the way this rendering reads to me, I'm just curious if you thought about actually not having such a striking kind of aqua blue, because for me, when I just look at this, I don't see Superman at all. I see a blue and I see the people because they're bronze, and he seems really kind of small and washed out behind the building. And most people are going to actually view this during the day, not at night, just because of the way downtown operates. So is there an opportunity to rethink that?
I'd like David Sculptor to respond to that.
Yeah, actually, I have a smaller model that's about 3 feet high that I took down to the site about a month or two ago. And it was during the day, and it has the figure looking like the stainless steel Minolik, and the base is painted the blue that Superman is colored with. And it did contrast well, so I think it's difficult sometimes when you put together a slide like this that you don't get the real feel for it. As you can see up in the left corner, the sky is kind of dark blue, so it's an evening shot. We could always change the color of the base, but I was hoping that have that blue used that is the color that Superman, his primary outfit was. But as times have changed, we've noticed that the most modern Superman, the color has become a darker blue. So it's possible to change it.
Okay. I mean, I'll leave it up to you. I just think it's unfortunate that Superman is the least obvious thing in this sculpture. And he's the most important piece. So it's just my opinion. But I think that in the way that this is at least rendered here, you're really drawn to the pole or the people, not to Superman. And then Commissioner Member Denise McCray Scott had her hand raised.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Madam Chair. I think a darker blue would be better, because I get why Superman is the color he is, because he's the Man of Steel. But if you had a darker blue, I think it would stand out a bit more from the background, because he's kind of washed out. Thank you.
We can do that.
I think to the gentleman's point, I mean, on slide 18, it's showing a darker blue. I think that's a sculpture that you're mentioning. And I think if we can use that color as opposed to the one that's in the render, I think it will, if you go back, I think a little bit more, slide 18, at least, yeah, almost to that, like it looks a bit darker there, maybe more of like, I don't want to call it a navy, but like maybe a truer blue. To that point, I think it would help. I think to kind of continue on Lillian's point, I was also thinking that, to me, if you go back to the daytime render, the people actually stand out the most.
Yes, they do.
Because they're bronze. I'm wondering if there's a thought to, and I think Superman would stand out
even more if, again, all the figures were the same, because then the blue would make it pop. You know, if all the figures were stainless steel and it's kind of a wash there, but then he has the blue, then your eyes go to Superman, as opposed to, again, this kind of competing nature with the bronze and the steel would be even more important than even changing the blue, to be honest.
The bronzes are gonna be darker than they're showing. And so they're not gonna pop anywhere near much as they are popping in this. You know, when they were scanned, they obviously look like Dundee rather than the actual images, but they will be darker. But again, the whole idea is Superman and Man of Steel, not Steel Shooter and Joanne.
Yeah, I think if the patina could be, if we can guarantee the patina is not almost like golden, like it's showing there, I think that would help. Yeah. It'd be great to, I don't know, not the preview of this body, but to, I know Tara to follow up with like the actual final finishes of this to make sure that that's okay.
Actually, it is, we can have staff review the final colors. We should. Commission members, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, just to follow up on the coloration, obviously we have a sample in front of us and we're looking at a slide. So I don't know why we're gravitating towards the slide. So I think that represents what it would look like. And obviously we don't know. We could take it outside up in the parking garage. Anyhow, that's how you pick samples. My question is, how does one who's physically challenged get up on the plinth?
Great question. On either side of the site. Sorry, I'm gonna have a couple slides here. Oh, overshot. So on this plan, to the plan south and to the plan east is a ramp that will go from the upper level down to the lower, and that is at a slope that is greater than 1 to 20. So it's more than adequate for
your handrail.
Yeah, they're actually existing ramps that we're gonna rebuild for this construction that already were way beyond ADA compliance. They're really not ramps. They don't ever require railings or anything.
Yeah.
And that was to get us into the building as well.
And the other question is, just comes down to context, because there's sort of like a plaza on sort of east side. I mean, there's an open space. How are these guys, how do they complement one another? Because I'm just thinking about the streetscape and urban design.
And I don't think we have a plan of that.
Yeah, we don't have
Other side. The other side is planted as well. It's actually, they've done a lot of planting over time. It will have, it's more of the main entrance to the convention center. It will be because of the expansion. It's because now that building is sitting above grade by 4 stories on St. Clair. A lot of people are going to be drawn to that main entrance for the convention center. So it's primarily a circulatory entrance to the atrium for the expansion of the ballroom that we put there.
No, I like how you incorporate the ramp. I see it there now.
Yeah.
It's, you know, sometimes when we do ramps, they feel like ramps, but this seems like a natural progression. Anyone can use it. It's not, you know, sort of go around the corner and use the ramp. So that worked out well, I believe.
I have one more question. Will there be anywhere on the site where you will tell the story? Or, I mean, I'm thinking about next generation folks, my kids, who won't know what this means to Cleveland. And so, you know, will it be kind of incorporated in a way that isn't just, well, if you miss a sign, you're gonna read a small plaque? Like, how will people really know the story?
Gary might want to talk a little bit about
Yes, so there will be a plaque that tells a story how 2 11th graders at Glenville High School created the very first comic book superhero. This is create Superman, he created an entire genre, which today is bigger than ever. It all started with 2 11th graders at Glenville High School. Our Sandra Parker will tell them, and the plaque will specifically talk about this. And there will also be a map showing exactly where they're at, where Glenville High School is, where the home of Jerry Siegel is on Kimberly Avenue, there's St. Clair, and the property of Joe Schuster. Currently, Joe Schuster property has a fence around it, a commemorative fence with panels from Action Comics #1, the very first comic book that had a superhero, the Superman on the cover. By the way, yesterday, April 18th, was the 1938 was the date.
Where will that be? And can you show me a rendering of those? Can you show me where those, do you have and are they, like in the ground? Are they plaques? What are they?
So as you can see, that cursor on the screen is circling where that sign is going to go. When we did the renderings, we did not yet have the location set in stone for that sign. So it is not in the rendering, but you can see again where the location is intended to be. And then I'm going to move to the next slide here. This is a representation of what it would look like when it's going to be just off the concrete. So you can stand on the sidewalk material and look and read that sign without impeding movement at all. And again, the graphics will be similar to what you're seeing at the airport when you grab your luggage.
Can you go back to the site plan with location? My question to consider is actually placing it closer to the sidewalk where people, who are, or, if you're walking down the sidewalk and you choose not to come up there, it's the first thing you see. It's what you read when you come in. Like, you can leave it there if you want. I just feel like people, if it's parallel to the way people are walking up to this, as opposed to kind of perpendicular, and as you're walking, people may miss it, or not necessarily it's the thing that they might explore first. So I think the location should be rethought of that and how it's sited. But up to you. Commission member Denise McCray-Scott. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. I had another question. Is this going to be called something like Superman Square or Superman Plaza? Is there a name for this area?
Yes, it's going to be called Jerry Siegel and Joe Schuster Tribute Plaza. Named after the two creators.
Superman Plaza is better. If you're able to have the Simon & Schuster as a tagline, nobody's going to be able to say that. If you just call it Superman Plaza and tagline, it might be better, but maybe you have to call it that.
I'm sure there's probably some level of legal maneuvering we would have to do as DC Comics.
Yeah, so even if we decided to call the Superman Plaza, we do have to get the DC Comics approval. They own the intellectual property. And by the way, the DC Comics and Warner Brothers, who had a meeting with, they love the stainless steel Superman. And by the way, there's a little town in Illinois called Metropolis. I think it has a population of about 5,000 people. And they have no connection to Superman other than the name of the town. And they put up a statue of Superman. They have a little museum there, a museum. And the statue has got the actual colors of what Superman looks like. It's kind of gaudy looking, actually, in my opinion. And the attorney for DC Comics said he really regrets approving that. He thought it was awful. He loves our statue. So does, by the way, the Siegel Schuster family also loves stainless steel as well, and the bronze statues, the family members. So, Joanne was the original model for Lois Lane, by the way, who then married Jerry Siegel.
Okay, commission members, a councilman, haven't heard from you. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? No, I was gonna stay quiet just because there's been so many good and better questions. I think my only point of consideration is I want to make sure that I'm a little worried about kind of where are people gonna stand to take pictures? And if you really wanna take the picture of the Superman, it seems like you have to be almost on the outside of what I think we should just start calling Superman Plaza unofficially. And I don't want people to trample the landscaping in trying to walk outside to try to get that shot looking up at him. It seems like that'd be tough to do in such a tight confine within the plaza.
Well, to answer your question, we are exploring increasing the grassy area. There's a 2-foot elevation change, and what we don't want to do is to have to put a railing for fall protection on that 2-foot elevation change where people could, they're backing up to take a picture and they fall off the retaining wall. So we're gonna do that delicate dance of using landscaping to protect people from falling off the edge, but yet giving them enough walking area to take their picture.
Okay.
It's a good point that the councilman is making, which is, Destination Cleveland does a really great job of anticipating or actually thinking about where people will take selfies from, or where you actually want them to, or where you want them, like with the Cleveland script sign, to take the photograph from. So I actually wonder if you ought to, literally put a stamp in the ground or an X in the ground, or, where you want that shot for Cleveland to be, because in some ways this will be a photographed area, it will be a selfie place, and it's going to get a run on social media. So you, just like Destination Cleveland does, you almost want to tell people where to take the best shot from and put a stamp in the ground, if you will. So I would consider that, because I think the councilman's point is well taken. You actually want to drive where that shot is.
I'd add to that, Lillian. My hope would be that wherever that location is, that the background is maybe like the Standard Building, which I would be a little. I'd hate for like this beautiful shot of Cleveland to be like the Brutalist Justice Center, or which is a weird, weird parallel there. Or just it's the convention center. Nothing against the convention center, but it's probably too close. But like, I think having the Standard Building in the background could be a really impressive thing for when there's like the ESPN shot during the Browns game or something like that. And maybe even coordinating. I know they uplight that building, trying to like coordinate the lighting with it too.
Okay, I'm going to task Commission Member Fluker, who's so good at making a motion.
Well, Madam Chair, before you do that, I think staff had some comments.
Oh, I was going to recap, one of us was gonna recap the design review.
Yeah.
Comments, Tara, if you wanted to recap the conditions.
Very
Wrote down, sorry.
So Dan Schenkel, Principal Planner for Major Projects in the Public Realm, and also your Administrator for Downtown Flats. This was seen yesterday in Downtown Flats. The committee wanted to just overall commend the monument. Finally getting a Superman monument here is very exciting, and I think everybody on the committee was excited about it. It was approved with conditions. The conditions were revising some of the concrete areas, as the applicant has noted, around some of these photo ops, around those benches. And I think that's in the works. It just hasn't been submitted for us to see. They also discussed making those grass triangular areas a lot bigger, just so that it's easier to not trample landscape and get a better view, including the map that was spoken about in terms of like, what are these other Superman locations in town? They also wanted some consideration of back-to-back benches. It sounds like they're looking at backless now, but that was the big overarching discussion.
Patrick Hewitt from County Planning is also here. Really brief, county monuments update as well.
Yeah, really brief. I serve as the chair of the County Monuments Commission. This is located not county property, so that is a separate approval process that we're also going through. Siegel and Schuster Society and the applicant came in March, gave a presentation, very positive comments from our commission. We anticipate final approval after going through this process, May 3rd, and really thankful to Tara and the city team who's wrangled all of these different approvals through this process.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll make an attempt. There's a lot to talk said here, and I'll try and be fair and unbiased. I move to approve the presentation as submitted for final approval with the following conditions. That the applicant look at revising the concrete area around the benches. They look at enhancing or increasing a grassed area to avoid trampling of landscaping. They look at providing a location for the plaque that's more conspicuous. They can consider back-to-back benches. And lastly, they take into consideration photo ops and how things contrast. Actually, there's one more, and that they work with staff relating to the final finishes of sculptures.
It was excellent.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion or anything else that you feel, the commission members, I thought that was a really great, great summary. If not, there's nothing else, call the roll.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Slight.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Can't wait to see this. I think it's a great location and a little bit of refinement, but this is wonderful. I know there's still a long process, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. The next item is a design review item in the far west. So if we can go to the next slide. This is Far West Design Review 2023-022. This is the proposed demolition of a one-story commercial building seeking final approval. This is at 14410 Puritas Avenue. And there's a proposed demolition. Are these two separate items? In the rear. So we're doing the front and the rear. Greg Barron is here to present. So I'm going to need to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
I do.
I believe we're going to need to take two separate motions, and I'll defer to staff, but we're going to look at the front and the rear, which are two separate addresses, I believe. So
I think that address on the bottom one that's a typo.
okay.
It should also be 144. Yeah.
Okay, and so to staff, while he's presenting, you can let us know if you need one or two motions when we get there. Okay, go ahead, Greg.
Okay, thank you guys. Thanks for allowing me to be here, both to the commission and the city of Cleveland. My name is Greg Barron. I'm managing director for Volker Development. We're an affordable housing developer working in the city of Cleveland. The demolition that we're presenting today really rolls into the larger project, which is also on the agenda today. So you guys clearly have a busy agenda, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. Okay, just as a reminder from last meeting, here's the current site. It is one parcel, but as the councilman mentioned, there's two separate addresses there. So if you look, it's highlighted here in red. The building to the south is the commercial building, which is the first item on the agenda for demolition. And the residential house in the rear is the second item for demolition today. Here are some exterior photos of the commercial property, which is up on Puritas Avenue. It's currently, it previously was a Buddhist temple in operation for a number of years. It's been vacant for the past few months. They actually moved. So we have interior photos, which we'll show you guys here shortly. Here are some other photographs of the exterior, again, currently vacant. Here's a shot from the rear. Here is the interior. So I was out there about 2 weeks ago and took photographs of the inside. Jumping to the rear property, which is the residential property to the north. This is currently an occupied residential property. It's on a month-to-month lease. Part of our financing for the project includes City of Cleveland Housing Trust Fund dollars. So we'll obviously follow Uniform Relocation Act. We're working with the tenants right now and really gearing up to find a comparable unit, and then we'll offer relocation benefits to them. We have a relationship, shared contact information, so we're in contact with those people now. Here's a few additional shots of the exterior. Just gonna go through these quickly. Here's a shot of the site. And here is the current, again, 2 weeks ago out there, met with the tenants. These are interior photos. So again, this rolls into the larger apartment development that we're here to discuss. That is the end of the demolition presentation.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Staff, is there a staff report?
Nate, are you on the line?
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Nothing to add. It was approved as presented at design review.
Okay, and do we need 2 motions? I guess this is to Zaber.
Yes, we'll need 2 motions to approve. There were 2 separate motions at the design review meeting, one for the front building and one for the rear.
Okay, thank you. All right, so can we take action on the front building first?
Sure. I just one comment. It was just my brain processing. Sometimes it's scary. However, those photos of the house felt like we were out in the middle of no place. The way they were dramatically taken, it was like green field.
They were like me. They were like frozen. Totally.
Okay, anyway, I move to approve the demolition as presented of a 1-story commercial building. Second.
Motion and a second, call the roll.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
White.
Yes,
Our
And I
motion
will-
carries.
and I will move approval of the rear residential building.
Second.
Motion and a second, call the roll.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Chairwoman McCurry, looks like Denise McCray Scott is trying to get her attention.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Madam Chair, I just wanted to make sure that the current residents of that home, they make sure that they have a place to go, that they're not displaced. That's a great concern of mine. Thank you.
Do you want to discuss the URA one more time?
Yeah, so we, I mentioned part of our financing, we were successful in receiving a housing trust fund award from the city of Cleveland. We have not started the environmental review process quite yet with the city's community development department, but we'll work with Mark Foy and the city's compliance staff as we move forward. It'll be a requirement of ours to kind of disclose the whole process with the city of Cleveland. So it's a requirement, and we want to be good neighbors anyway. We're not interested in kind of moving anybody out, so.
So through the chair to Commission Member McCray Scott, it is a requirement for the applicant to work closely with us to ensure that the tenants have a new home, and to ensure that they are fairly compensated as well.
And it's ultimately approved. Our plan for them, the location that they'll end up, is ultimately approved by the city.
Thank you.
Next item is Far West. Oh, no, that we did this one. Next one. Oh,
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
the
Okay,
final,
all right.
final for the.
wait, if you go back, let me read it, because this is the design review. We probably should have seen this first, but this is the actual final approval of the design at 14410 Puritas Avenue. I don't need to swear you in again. Is there anyone else going to speak to this, Greg, or just you?
We should have a handful of representatives from the project team on. Megan Harding from RDL Architects, Peggy Brown from Peggy Brown Landscape Architecture, and then
Okay.
Tom Baldwin from Bram Hall Engineers should be on as well.
Okay. Since they're online, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury? And if they're going to speak, I need them to say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Take it away.
Okay. We are here for the final presentation for the Puritas Senior Apartments. I will give a brief reminder description of the project. We're here for final. We obviously made it through both conceptual and schematic with the City Planning Commission, with you guys, with design review. Quick reminder, 48 unit senior apartment building. It's a combination of 28 one bedrooms and 22 bedrooms. The project will serve seniors 55 and older who fall within the 30% and 80% AMI income bracket. Residents will be provided with supportive services through our property management company and supportive service provider. We'll also have some kind of unique features for the seniors, including a senior fitness facility with senior appropriate equipment, that sort of thing, as well as enhanced site building security. Development team, so Volker Development is co-developing the project with Barton Communities, also known as Lakewood Senior Citizens out of Lakewood, Ohio. Barton will also be property manager and supportive service coordinator. RDL Architects is serving as the architect. We're still deciding between two local general contractors here in Cleveland, who will ultimately be the general contractor for the project. And then I mentioned Bramhall Engineering and Peggy A. Brown Landscape Architecture, who are on the call today. Here, just a reminder, here's the site, the two demolitions we just went through. This is the existing site plan. A couple highlights here. There are 16 total parking spaces. We'll get a little bit further into it as we get to the elevations and that sort of thing. But one of the comments in the original conceptual presentation was making it more friendly for pedestrians moving from Puritas Avenue back to the building. So we did add some pause points and seating areas along that walkway, which we'll talk about. Another big one that came out of design review was the view of the dumpster enclosure from Puritas Avenue, which again will, the elevations and renderings will show that better. Here is a stormwater management plan for the site, which will obviously be included in the parking lot and walkway. Landscape, so as I mentioned, Peggy Brown's on the call today. It's really a combination of trees, screenings, that sort of thing. I guess if we could come back to if anyone has specific questions. Okay, here's a detailed landscape plan with materials. Site lighting. So the fixture that you see on the left, the D series, there'll be two of those facing the parking lot on the west side of the site. And then the Millennium light fixture, we have 4 of those along the pedestrian pathway from Puritas Avenue back to the building. Here is the first floor plan. So as I mentioned, fitness room, community room. There's also 9 units on the ground floor. Floors 2 through 4 are pretty much the same. These floors will have a laundry room, they'll have a trash room, and then residential units. There's 13 units on each floor. Let's go through these. Here is the south elevation. So if you look to the far left, bottom left corner, that is the trash enclosure. Again, one of the big items that came out of both design review meetings that we attended. There. Here's the north elevation. As you can see in the rear there, there's a seating area with tables for the senior residents to sit outside and enjoy the weather. Here is the west elevation and east elevation. The west elevation, just want to point out where the red tree is kind of poking out. That's the dumpster enclosure. And here is the elevation from Puritas Avenue. Again, big items that came out of previous meetings were the dumpster enclosure, monument signage along Puritas Avenue, and then seating areas and pause points for pedestrians moving back from Purvis Avenue towards the building. It's a little tough to see, but you can see the site lighting along the walkway. You know, we really went back and forth with design review and internally on landscape materials and what makes the most sense for the site. Here's a little bit closer to the main entrance. As you can see off to the right of the entrance, there's a seating area for residents, and then the dumpster enclosure on the left. Here's a little bit more zoomed in. Again, you can see light fixtures that we're including some of the landscape materials. Here is the material finishes. So a combination of vinyl, hardy, and then brick veneer on the exterior. Another comment that came out of design review was we originally had white vinyl windows. They requested that we change those to tan, which we made that change. That is the presentation.
Thank you. Commission members, questions?
A couple just observations. First of all, I'm happy you decided, or at least we've been seeing a lot of affordable housing with pitched roofs, and they all start looking the same. So I'm glad, you know, there's some freshness here, trying to articulate the elevations and everything. I'm happy to see that you created some pause points along that very long traverse from the street to the front door. Is there like a, you know, just out of curiosity, is there a bus stop close to here?
It could be closer. It could be closer, that's correct. There's, we're actually working with myself and Nate from the planning department. Have reached out to RTA. It's currently a stop on West 143rd and Purvis Avenue. And we're actually in conversations to move that.
I think this is, having some seating option there at the end of that walk is great for, you know, they have transit, buses coming up, you know, medical, they go to adult daycare, I mean, Uber, buses. So I think that's will be wonderful for the seniors who live there.
Yeah, so we'll continue to work with the city on making that change or moving the stop.
And this is just to the applicant, Madam Chair. I started riding bikes again, and I'm on this forum. It's all seniors. I hate to say that I'm a senior, but I am. And thank you. And so, no, but seriously, there are seniors riding bikes. I mean, they ride e-bikes because, you know, you can go further. It's less stress on your body. There's folks in the club who are 75, 80 years old. So what I am advocating for is maybe consider some sort of bike rack or something. I think that's
one next to the building.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Commissioner.
But to build off that interior storage might be good too, especially for an electric bike or something like that. That's
because they don't fare well outside in enclosed environments because you technically supposed to get the batteries out. They have like the modules. They're better inside. Thanks, Jonathan.
I'll just add that you kind of stole my comment from me about trying to see if we can relocate the bus stop just because you'd have to walk all the way down and then walk a couple 100 feet over to the traffic light. All in all, I think it's a great location for senior housing. I'll just say, I know we don't think of West Park as like the, you know, walkable, densest part of the city, but it's really rich in amenities. And I mean, from here, there's one of the 3 Marks, with the Marks capital of Northeast Ohio. Right down the street, there's a church, there's a library. It's down the street from the Gunning Rec, which has a senior center. So there's a lot of practical reasons why this would be a great place for a senior to live. So I think having the bus stop or the bike amenity and things like that help make sure that all those different assets are best leveraged.
Sorry for stealing the thunder.
You're good. I'll move approval.
I have a question.
I'll wait.
Thank you. Madam Chair, to the presenter, is there, I'm looking at the rendering, is there, were there any provisions made for emergency medical vehicles coming in and out, entrance and out? Because I'm looking to see, you know, people get sick and you may have to call for EMS. how is that gonna be handled?
Yeah, Megan, if you want to speak to that, I know, as we were designing the parking lot, because it's such a tight site, including turnaround areas and that sort of thing.
If you flip up to the site plan, we have a turnaround space that's at the northern part of the parking lot. Scroll down a little bit. Yeah, right there, you can see it by the dumpster enclosure. We designed a little pocket space up there that you can turn around. It would fit an emergency vehicle, a trash pickup truck.
Okay, and my other question, that applies too for people that have the community response transit for pickup to go to doctor's appointments and the like. That space is large enough for that as well, correct?
Yeah, they could pull up to that spot there and be picked up. And we also have two accessible parking spaces right up at the front too. There's a van spot and a standard accessible size spot right at the front.
Thank you.
Councilman?
I will move approval with final materials and elevations going to staff.
Do you want to make a comment about bikes and?
Oh, and exploring ways to incorporate bike storage within the building itself. Thank you.
Second.
A motion and a second. I'll call the roll.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes,
Sergeant,
Yes.
Slide.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you.
It was a great project.
thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So next item is Near West design review. This is proposed demolition of a one-story commercial building seeking final approval 3726 Clark Avenue. Eric Perdomo, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Okay. Thank you.
Here's, we're one. Thank you for having me here today. Sheldon, here's the copies from when they removed all the gas tank out of the ground in 2015. So everything's been approved by the EPA. All the texts are here for the thing on the ground, remove the gas tank. There's nothing on that ground but this ugly standard looking building. So this is the most information accurate. So what I want is to get the approval to just clear this land, and once I knock it down, I'm gonna grade the land and progress in the meantime, just to make it look. Everything going, and also remove the concrete, and I put topsoil and cedar with straw, and all of that.
I'll move approval. It's not in great shape.
Second.
A motion and a second. I think you can call the roll.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes,
Sergeant.
It's okay.
Slide.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Good luck.
Thanks for waiting.
Thank you for taking my time.
Thanks for waiting. All right, we have a couple of mandatory referrals. The first one, if we can go to the next slide, is 407-2024.
You're good to go.
All right, thanks.
2024. This is authorizing the mayor and commissioner of purchases and supplies to sell certain property no longer needed. This is at Grovewood Avenue and East 164th Street to the Greater Cleveland Habitat for Humanity. Is there staff here to present this one?
Yes, Madam Chair, Cassie Slansky from MOCAP is here.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Cassie Slansky, MoCap Division of Real Estate. So this legislation is to authorize the sale of city-owned property. This property is under the jurisdiction of Public Works. I'll do a brief overview of the legislation itself, and then there are a couple of members from Habitat that have a couple slides. They just wanted to briefly go over the project. It's located on the corner of Grovewood Avenue and East 164th. It's a little over 1.7 acres. It's currently a vacant lot in Councilman Polunsik's Ward 8. So the property was also the former site of the old Grovewood pool. Habitat did work with the city. We issued a license agreement, so they did go out and do quite a few soil borings prior to introducing this legislation to make sure that the site would be suitable for single-family homes. The next slide are just a few quick snapshots that the appraiser did of the lot from the corner. As you can see, it's a pretty open, flat, vacant lot. And then I think Habitat should be on the line. They have a couple slides. They're just going to go over their project. They're going to be doing 10 single-family homes, and they're working with the city now on doing a lot split post-closing.
Okay. Before they present, and I think I'll need to swear them in. I also have a technical question. First, let me swear them in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
Yes, this is Bob Whitney with Greater Cleveland Habitat. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So my question before we jump in is actually a technical one to staff. This property is technically was part of the Parks and Recreation Department, was a pool site, is that correct?
Yeah, it's still under the jurisdiction of Public Works, so the director of Public Works is the director that'll be, that it's
Okay. I just want to point this out, is that historically, the city has had a policy of, I know there can be exceptions, and we should talk about what that exception is today, of not selling parkland or parks, public open space, that there is was a sense of, and I know there is a park master plan going on about the need for green space and open space. And so I believe for the commission, it's important that before Habitat present that the staff and or the Department of Public Works state clearly for the record why this is parkland is being sold, and why it's not an appropriate site anymore for park and or open space, so that we are not setting a precedent for the sale of public park space. So that needs to be stated, that you've looked at this, you've looked at it from a master plan point of view. It's not appropriate anymore. There's not a need for public open space.
I can say that they've been working heavily with the councilman. I know that this is a priority from him. They've also been working with the planning department and going through that process prior to engaging us for selling the site. The director of Public Works has also administratively approved this project. My understanding is just a vacant lot sitting. It's not operating as a park at this time, but that's just the background that I have on the transaction itself.
I mean, for me, that's not sufficient, meaning that that we need, I understand the councilman wants this, I understand this getting signed off, but our role as the planning commission is to kind of look at this in the context of where there's open space in this neighborhood, to make a clear decision about the use of the land in the context that we're not setting a precedent that other park space will be sold. Now, there have been exceptions. I've been on the commission 15 years, but a real case was made for why this makes sense, its context, what's around it, the city making a clear case in its kind of parks master plan where else other things fit, and that this is understood from a planning perspective, because it's a pretty big deal to sell parkland. This isn't in the county land bank. This isn't in the city land bank.
Sure.
Madam.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna
Go
proceed.
ahead, Director.
So we are in the process of the Parks and Rec master plan of looking at level of service for our various parks and, existing or former pool sites. If that's helpful background, certainly we could have more context in a future presentation around that. For this particular site, I don't believe we have that information before you today.
Okay, so, Matt,
It's a fair question. I know, and I don't know the history of why there's no longer a pool on the site. I think it predates me and I'm not as familiar with Collinwood, but I do believe that this is across, on the north side of Grovewood is Humphrey Park. So, and where Collinwood Rec is. So I wonder if maybe the pool went away when they rebuilt the rec center, but I'm speculating. I'll fully admit that.
So
That is correct, Councilman.
I mean, I understand that. I just, there's a different measuring stick for selling parkland. And in this, I'm not against this. This is not what I'm saying. I'm not against this. I'm against not understanding it in the context or a case being made, because then when other land comes before us that people want to develop that is parkland, we may be setting a precedent that we have not in the past without clearly understanding its history and context and why it doesn't make sense to have it as public open space. So what we don't want in the future is just the continuous incremental sale of parks and open space without a clear case being made.
all right, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Chair, what I would like to propose is we postpone this deliberation to the next meeting to allow the applicant to provide context.
City.
Okay, okay. The city of Cleveland, the opportunity to put together a presentation which demonstrates why this is happening, whether relative to context in the neighborhood, where other parks are located, and how this might impact the community.
And we'll come back with a level of service.
Right.
And if I may ask.
That was a motion. That was a motion.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. And to the applicant, this is not about the specific project. This is just a precedent setting question. And for us to make sure that we follow a procedure that we have had. And just so you know, we have had parkland come before us over the years, which we have said no to selling. And it's because we have had a procedure, and it doesn't mean that we're opposed to this. We just need to follow that procedure to protect the city and residents in the future. And that's just a process, a real understanding that we know that we'll make a decision based on the specific case that prevents kind of the sale of parkland writ large.
I certainly appreciate and understand that. I did a quick question. I know Councilman Polensek did send to Michael Bozak yesterday a letter of support that did provide additional context for the neighborhood and why he endorsed this project. It did also provide additional information as far as the adjacent park that Councilman Slife had referenced. Is that something that can be considered, or is that something that in preparation for when this is presented again?
Yeah, I would just bring it back. I mean, we need staff to make a presentation. We need the Parks and Rec or the public, the department to really make the case and make it in the context of the kind of seriousness of selling parkland. And then we can act, but we just need to do our due diligence so that next time if something comes that's selling parkland that shouldn't be sold, we have followed process. So we have a motion and a second, and we can see you in 2 weeks, and staff will prepare. So we'll see you at the next meeting.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call the
If there's
roll.
anything we can do, please let us know. Thank you.
Can you call the roll?
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Trey Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Slide.
Yes.
Motion carries. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And I think this is really for staff, just so you know, for the Habitat. This isn't about the project itself or the councilman's support. This is about the staff and the administration setting the context for us that that talks about why this is different than, let's say, selling Public Square, right?
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. We'll definitely take that back. And, you know, I think we ought to be clear about what decommissioning a park means and have a process about that. Otherwise, we're gonna keep running into this particular issue. So we'll be sure to loop back with Public Works and NOCAP on that.
And there are some staff still in the department who recall a couple times that this happened where we did not approve the selling of a park. And you should look at some of those other examples so that we understand when it's not a good idea to do this.
Sure.
Okay, so administrative approvals, if you can go through these one by one.
Madam Chair, I move to approve of the single administrative approval before us.
Second.
A motion and a second, call the roll.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent.
Yes.
Motion carries. Slide. Yes. Slide, do we have a yes?
I think he's in the restroom.
Oh, okay. We still have a quorum, so motion carries. So our last item is a large item, and this is.
We have one more small.
Before. Oh, the CAPS banner, yes. Okay, so next item is 2024017. This is the CAPS banner on Hotel Indigo seeking final approval. This is at 651 Huron Road. Laura, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do. I do as well. John McCray.
Good morning, Chairwoman Shannon Leonard, Chief Zoning Planner for Cleveland City Planning Commission. This will be a quick presentation. The applicant is proposing 1,575 square foot of temporary special event signage on the western wall of the Hotel Indigo. As you'll see here, this is the wall that's now visible after the parking deck came down at 601 Huron, directly north of the Rocket Mortgage. It's located in general retail. As you may recall, this is the parking deck that was condemned. It did used to have a wall mural on it. This is not a wall mural application. This is just for the playoffs for coming up starting this weekend. Why is it here? It is located off the premise of the Rocket Mortgage on a private property. So you're just looking to make sure the design compatibility, does it vary only if such variation will result in better signage? Does it meet appropriate design guidelines and the minimum variation necessary? And then administrative approval is not available. We did administrative approvals were done for the rest of the playoff package, but again, that was on property and this is off premise. And so there's obviously they're allowed 100 square feet typically at Hotel Indigo for wall signage, but because this is special events, they're looking for a variance of 1,475 square feet. And again, so does this result in signage that is better suited to the design of the subject property? Will it result following Planning Commission's design review guidelines? And then are they minimum necessary to ensure design compatibility? And so this is here really just for the playoffs temporarily. And so they do need a variance from this commission. I know there's a representative here for the Cavs as well as Laura. So if there's any questions, they'd be willing to answer them. Laura?
Oh, thank you. John McCray would like to speak on this on my behalf or for our company. He's the vice president of the company and spoke yesterday, so would like to just continue that.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for hearing our case. We could go through the slides pretty quickly. The first slide that we had there was a context showing the location of the banner. This slide that you're seeing now is basically multiple shots from street level to give a perspective of that wall and where that wall is seen from. So as you run through these, you see basically from the northwest and west facing east, you have good shots and visibility of that corner wall. The ask for the banner is simply to help create and
help promote the event. It's a great accomplishment. It's a great thing for the city of Cleveland. And the reason that the Cavs are asking for this banner be put up is simply to help spur that much more enthusiasm and excitement about their accomplishments of getting into the playoffs. The banner duration would be basically a maximum 63 days. The last final Game 7 playoff game would be on June 23rd. We show that also that the fabrication and installation of the banner is with Tapcons and fender washers. Those would go in mortar joints so as to not disturb the brick that is there. And we will make sure we use epoxy mortar upon removal, so you wouldn't even know the banner was there once we remove the banner. I'll take any other questions that the board has.
There was a condition by the, and Dan can speak to this if you want, but there was a condition by the committee that any future off-premise signage that comes to Hotel Indigo by the private property owner, Hotel Indigo, or if they're working with the Cavs for special events, to come back and either present a master sign package for the Cavs special events, or for this sign, if the property owner wants to use this sign for advertising of any sort, they'd have to come back and go through the proper wall mural process.
To that point, one other condition was very specific to this sign, was to have a one-time only approval for this one specific event.
For the playoffs.
Can you go back one slide? Are there, just out of curiosity, separate from this, do we know of any development plans for the former parking garage site, or is it weeded and like grassed at this point?
We are not aware at this time. Certainly Bedrock is working on that.
Okay.
Process.
I asked just because looking at this, I literally thought this was a picture of a building that my 5-year-old drew. Like that's what it looks like at a distance. So I do think if this is if there's not any like near term development plans, I actually think it's a good location to explore public art or something, just because I think that looks pretty bleak. So I have no issues with this as a temporary thing, but to the point of what's the longer term strategy is, I think that we should explore this as a canvas opportunity for something, because it looks rough. So.
Yeah, Tara mentioned that at the downtown committee.
But I might add, if your kid is experiencing those type of tendencies, he might become an architect.
Yeah.
They might be.
Yeah. All right. Yes.
Our daughter is in that.
Madam Chair, there are no more comments. I move to approve the temporary banner on a one-time basis for this event, with the caveat that the applicant come back to staff to discuss how they might utilize this wall in the future.
And I second.
In a variance, obviously, that would allow this temporary banner to be erected. Thanks.
I second.
Thank you.
Motion and a second. I'll call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Swett.
Yes.
Hopefully it's going up
Motion-
today.
Yeah.
We're
working
Playoffs
on
start
it.
tomorrow.
We are working on it. Thank you very, very much. Go Cavs, and thank you again, board members. Have a great weekend.
Probably the lift is, the lift's out there right now, I'm sure.
We're heading down there soon.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Thank
All
you
right.
again.
So last, but certainly not least, is a big item. This is the 2023-058. This is the Cavs, the Cleveland Clinic Global Peak Performance Center, new construction. This is seeking schematic approval. This is at West 3rd and Eagle Avenue. We saw this for conceptual approval a little while ago. I'm going to swear everyone in, and then just I'm going to actually turn it over to the director, who's going to kind of make some comments before the presentation. Then we'll hear the presentation from the team. I will say I do know that August will love this comment. There are 112 slides. So
122.
Oh, sorry, 122. I'm dead off. But we're gonna ask
That scares me.
the team from Bedrock to really give us the most important kind of condensed version of that. We have time, so we want to be thorough, but we also, you know, do not need to go through 122 slides. So, so we'll ask that you use your judgment in how you present this to us. As I said, we want to be thorough, and then we will open it up. So first, everyone here to speak, either from the Cavs or Cleveland Clinic, I'll just swear you all in and then need you all to say aye, either online or in person. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury? So I'm going to turn it over to the director first. And I will tell you, it's a big item. I don't believe there will be any public comment, but because of the nature of this, if there is anybody who'd like to speak later after the full presentation, you can just raise your hand or ask a question. So Director Wong.
Sure. Thank you, everybody. As the director, excuse me, as the chair mentioned, the Planning Commission did review a conceptual master plan framework. And that was approved in May 2023 for the Cuyahoga Riverfront Master Plan, and that has really served as the early planning project technology for all these projects. Last September, the Bedrock and City entered into a master development agreement as part of the public-private partnership ongoing for the Cuyahoga Riverfront Master Plan. That really lays out the process for the Planning Commission approval of future material changes to the master development plan. And right now, the city staff is working with the Bedrock team and its consultants to develop a master development plan that will supersede last year's master plan, and that will come before you at a later time. So that will have much more, you know, information around how the framing of public realm, et cetera, will happen. As for the item before you today, this is really focused in on the vertical development for the Global Peak Performance Center. We have representatives from the Cavs as well as the clinic, as well as Bedrock here. Back in October 2023, this body did approve the conceptual design with multiple comments. And Dan will summarize the conceptual comments right after me before the presentation. So you're aware of those, of that motion you all made last fall. And then April 4th, which is about 2 weeks ago, Downtown Flats reviewed the schematic design and really complemented the architectural direction and did share some elements about various components, particularly at West 3rd and Eagle, that, you know, Dan also will kind of chew into and present as part of the staff report, and you received that motion form from DRC. So following this presentation, city staff will share the report and comment on some of these public realm components. I do want to mention that the public realm is not a part of today's review, but if it does order the siting, it may be impacted by the siting of the building. So if it does sort of address the siting of the building, you're welcome to discuss those. The city will continue to work closely with Bedrock and its consultants through the final design and the master development plan for the project area. So with that, Dan, if you could summarize and remind the commission the conceptual design, since it was last fall, some of the conditions.
Yeah, thank you, Director. And Xavier, if you'd like to advance to the.
We have it, yeah. Thanks.
If you could just advance to the motion forms, there you go. These are the conceptual motion forms. These aren't before you. What you have before you is the schematic motion forms from Downtown Flats. I'm just going to summarize the conceptual now, just to remind everybody what we talked about last time. I think the biggest things to consider when looking at the presentation today, hopefully the applicant will speak to them. The southeastern end of the river walk really dead ends at the West 3rd Street intersection. And there's a lot of conflicts there around the player parking entrance, conflicts with the river walk and boat launch. Those were all conditions of approval prior, just reconsidering that and enhancing that key connection point. Also, the pedestrian bridge performance space was a concern of the commission at that time as well. And the idea was to emphasize pedestrian circulation on the street level. I know the applicants worked really hard with that space, and we'll be talking a lot about that today. Also, just the Riverwalk design. Obviously, the public realm is really not getting reviewed today. We're focused on architecture, but the Riverwalk design overall, at that time during conceptual, was a big emphasis of discussion and wanting to have active pedestrian use along the edge of the building. So that should be considered when we're looking at the architecture. Also, the player parking and executive parking entrance and ground level parking was discussed about just reconsidering where that's located and having that on the riverfront if that's appropriate, and making sure that there's clear ground level uses along the riverwalk there. So that's where we were with conceptual. And I'll turn it over to Bedrock, and once they're done, we'll have a further staff report getting into the schematic approvals from Downtown Flats.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, commission members, Madam Chair, to the director, to Mr. Schinkel, to Linda Henderson, the whole team here. I'm Deb Janik with Bedrock. I'm going to spend less than a minute opening this statement. I want to turn it over to our CEO, Cleveland Cavaliers, Nick Bartlett, as well as Pat Rios from Cleveland Clinic and our design and engineering team. Thank you again for having us here as we continue through this process. The director, of course, encapsulated where we are today and where we've come since May 2023. So thank you, Director, on that. We continue our work. We continue to advance our infrastructure investments, our engineering design coordination, and all the different components that the Flats Design Review Committee, and of course with the staff team and city planning and other departments are sharing with us. This is a process we embrace. We're excited about it, and we look forward to moving this forward collectively together. We started our conversation with you in May of 2023, saying we'd be back often, and we'd be in discussion to bring the highest class, most exciting riverfront project we can to this community. That commitment stays today, and in an effort, to the chair's point, to get through less than 122 slides quickly, I'm going to end there, but thank you very much. We look forward to our continued work together. With that, I'll ask Nick Bartlett.
Thank you, Deb. To the chair and to the entire city planning committee and director as well, thank you for the time today. When we were here the last time, there was a lot of feedback, which obviously we've summarized, and as we've transitioned kind of a more conceptual to schematic, we do feel like we've really tried to keep an eye to all the feedback that was shared in that last session. We've mentioned and talked through words like being permeable and porous to the community. We think all of those things we've tried to address. We've also understood creating activation points along the riverfront to make sure that it's welcoming to people that maybe not are practicing in the facility, but want to be in the neighborhood. We also want to make sure with our partners with the Cleveland Clinic, we are really focused on how we're activating their facility, creating pull-through and patience, and really serving as a care vessel to the entire community, whether that's Ohio City, Tremont, downtown, or the neighboring regions that we know that this facility will attract people forward through. And so as we go forward and as we embrace the rest of these images, we're very excited about what the potential this project has for our community. First, because of the thoughtful approach we've taken with our partners at Populous, in regards to trying to make sure that there is connectivity and multimodal points for people to not only access this facility, but utilize the facility, as well as activate and utilize the neighborhood. And so we have a lot of excitement around this next step in the process. We embrace it. We look forward to your feedback, and we just want to once again thank you for your partnership.
Hey, I feel like I parked at the wrong garage when I go to City Club. Is there one like underneath?
Erica.
For the one that you get the validation?
Excuse me, Erica. Could you please mute yourself?
I like City Club too, for whatever it's worth. But anyways, we do. I know we have a lot of slides to get into, but we appreciate this partnership, and we look forward to embracing all of the outcomes that come from it, and delivering really a world-class facility that Cleveland deserves, in our opinion, and continue to build upon the momentum that we see across our entire community right now. With that, I'd like to welcome Pat Rios from the Cleveland Clinic.
Thank you, Nick, Madam Chair, Director Wong, members of the Planning Committee and Commission. Thank you very much for the time today. Without restating what Nick said, I guess I'll just say we're extremely excited about the opportunity that this project is for Cleveland, okay, to become a center of a global sports enterprise, okay, and the opportunity it has to put Cleveland on a global stage. And part of that, the part we're bringing is care, and the part we're also bringing is innovation. We're trying to offer a new product to the community. I guess the only last thing I'd say is I've really enjoyed the partnership we've had with the Cavs and with Bedrock. It's been absolutely fantastic. We've heard the feedback, and we share a lot of the same principles that Bedrock and the Cavs do, and the city of Cleveland do as well. So we're excited about the presentation you're about to see, and I don't want to get in the way of the start of the 122 slides.
So let's kick off with slides. So why are we here today? This is an update on the Cuyahoga Riverfront Master Plan in coordination with the schematic approval for the Cavs Global Blues. And excuse me, if you could introduce your name for the record. Oh, sure. Yeah. Everyone, I'm Cullen Mavis with MKSK. I'm with the Master Plan Works. And we are here today for the schematic approval of this fantastic building, receiving previous conceptual approval in October. And speaking from a master plan perspective, we really see this first sequence as a continuation of the primary goals and tenets of that framework plan that was approved last year. So continuing to develop Cleveland as a 15-minute, 18-hour neighborhood comprised of diverse uses and leveraging the physical access of the city of Cleveland, providing that critical shore-to-shore connection, prioritizing investments in sustainable infrastructure and public spaces that serve as drivers for commerce, housing, entertainment, and recreation, and delivering a new multi-purpose urban neighborhood to attract and develop workforce, accelerate business, and rapid opportunities. This is our schedule and how we got here today. I feel like this is covered, so in interest of time, where are we focusing today? Sequence 1A, which is what we call this initial sequence, is the Cavs and Flag Global Beach Performance Center and is putting infrastructure around it. So looking at that in plan, we're focusing on the area and intersection at future Eagle Ave and West 3rd Street intersection at the beginning of collision bed along the riverfront. And in terms of how does this fall within the context of the framework plan, we're here today to review the building, but in terms of how it falls within the context of the master plan, it is at the crux of Eagle Ave and West 3rd. It's along and part of the first sequence of the riverfront improvements, and including the kayak launch. And ongoing work that is underway today is the bulkhead rehabilitation, sign of Eagle Ave, pump station relocation, all of the design of the public realm in coordination with the city and for these parcels.
Great. Good morning, everybody. Jonathan Malley, lead architect with Populous. Jack Griffiths is also here. We'll be taking you through the slides as quickly as possible and providing the pertinent details. There. You know, it's not often the case that we as architects are able to work on sites. This is an incredible site. And the work that Bedrock's doing, and the Cavs and the clinic, and thinking about the overall district and vitalizing it is such an opportunity. And from the beginning, you know, last time we were here, we were not able to show the design yet. We had plenty of renderings to show at this point, but we needed to have a building with presence on the waterfront that would elevate the community, that would become an icon for the city. And we think that that's exactly what we're doing with the way that this building is tying in. See the materiality of the building, you know, akin to the kind of industrial qualities of the riverfront, looking at the historic past, but then bringing that forward in a very futuristic and modern, but that's an incredible story. And you know, the detail and the thought that's going into it is really important in terms of the overall elevation of the facade, but also the activation of the waterfront, which is something that we talked about last time, in September. Elevating the building and creating that ground floor is what activates the waterfront. And show you as we get into the plans, that connectivity, the way that we want, you know, the landscaping, the street furniture, the site furnishings, the lighting, all of that to come to life. So Jack's gonna jump in here and take us on through it.
Jack Ricketts here with Populous. We wanted to start looking at our conceptual drawings, where we began on this process within the design, what we always referred back to, really the core principles, goals, and objectives. Starting with the river, embracing the river, really looking at how we can reimagine and reconnect that connection from downtown to the river, creating a soft edge, and ultimately for the building design to be that icon, to be a beacon and a catalyst for this area moving into the future. We paid a lot of attention to activating public realm, really key portion for us. This is through the thoughtful design of the architecture as well as the landscape and planting, really bringing that all together to create what we hope to be a first-class pedestrian experience around the world. Looking further out, focusing on that connectivity, both to existing connections and footfall and roadways, as well as to how this can be connected into future developments. Activation, really key. Looking at the river in particular, how we can activate that waterfront, particularly in the podium of the building. And I said the theme of porosity, this is going into that permeable aspect, creating that visual as well as programmatic connection between public.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
We just put this like because the technical difficulties here, let me get this thing. Oh, no. You guys surprised.
Now you're forced to entertain us.
122 slides blew up the presentation.
You get a cooking lesson this morning.
I know.
While they're fixing this, I want to point out that commission member Erica Anthony is on, and she came on before this started, so she will be voting in this matter. So thank you, Erica, for joining.
Thank you, Chair.
Xavier, do you want me to resend it or anything?
No, it's the computer that's acting up. It's just taking a long time to open up anything. Let me actually turn it right off.
How are you?
Good, yeah. Checks from their performance.
Right.
I think I can speak out there.
Print it all out. Back and forth. Yeah. Oh, what's that?
Yeah.
Well, technically, it's not known for technologies.
Let's get out the menu.
It's like, it was like the 2014 network here, that we have Wi-Fi. Like.
Okay. Okay.
Here's what it is.
So that's something that.
Actually went there for Eclipse Friday. Like that, and forget friend in town. And like bumped into like half the world, like Secretary Kelly was there.
Really?
Sean Brennan, the state rep. Like some of our West Park was there. My friend. So you just like know everybody. Like this is an unusual state, but yes. Yeah, I missed one last night. I had one of the speakers was our friend, Margaret. Yeah. And then well, my frustration is like Lakewood Farm. The playground's the same equipment I just got. And then I'm trying to say like, no, there's not, we don't need to step. Like, E-rate everything. Like, we have a nice day. Yeah. The, my wife's taking the kids for that, the playground at that. And they said they need to, they need to go. I don't know, if it's- and I would think, I think it's. Maybe 4 hours. It's not that close out the window, it's that they like go to talk. Same, yeah. Right. I haven't seen somewhere like that. Let's dump it. It goes back down and they got one tree. It comes down, like the arm comes out and there's no garbage. The resident just said that they're like, please see attachment. I was like, yeah, okay, that's pretty funny. Figure out how to get.
And the first, this is our second generation.
Yeah, they were like flimsier.
Yeah.
They just turned your past.
Right.
Yes.
This part.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and it's that story. Oh, that is. Well, we're back to our. Yeah, we say. No, I got to work. Have to see us to make sure. Yeah, because I mean, I don't think that the shadow. Exactly. I was one. But it's the valley there. Still not getting much down. Like, yeah, okay. Right. Also, the plan is, yeah, like you come in and park, it's like something like have it like shelter or something. That's what I like. So
let's
have
let you know.
Most things should be ready.
Yeah. The western West.
Yeah.
The city.
Oh, yeah. I think I actually have, back in the day, for the farmers block, there was like a west, like a west fans. But the highest number, I don't think is on the 98. Well, yeah, they're supposed to come up. You know, you beat us by 2.
This is our intermission, I guess. Yeah, right, yeah.
You guys are the new lights.
Exactly. So she is here. She has a dedicated to this project. She's like, yeah, actually,
Straight in the concert.
She was when I first started. But then like I was like 24 years old.
oh yeah, she has that in there.
Now I'm 35.
Right in the middle of it. It's those shots, so.
This is a cool map that I was looking at. I don't know if you noticed this back in the little packet.
Which one?
I don't know. This is your kayak map.
It's every Friday.
You're welcome. I did it once last summer. My dad has these ones in kayak where they have like a little water.
Well, no, I
was just like you know the little your tin fire station, fire truck. Yeah. You know, like where you kind of go back and forth. You go back and push back and forth and stuff, and you just go like so you don't have to. Yeah, and it goes. There's always another way. It's like a big like push 6 months. You have to go. Yeah. No, so I was gonna steal that from you at some point, but I don't have a trailer. Every time I go up, it's really thin, and I haven't seen it. Getting a trailer installed, and I have this one area, and I don't really, like, it'd be great to get under one, like, and it's just a little, I don't know, radius here, and be able to come all the way up.
Other than that.
I mean, my plan is.
Yeah. My dad has a like, so it goes like still like 20 miles an hour. You know, it's like yeah. On the bike path or the road? Yeah. I'm thinking like, I have like 2 kids, so it's, I'm getting all the way cars that sometimes I have to drive faster than if I didn't have 2 kids, I could very easily. That'll be all I want to do is.
Yeah, no, I think that's.
Library.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like so with my take the road and go 25 miles. It's fun. Like it's they're gonna get there 10 minutes after they go.
And you see things.
Right.
You try it, there's a deal to be made. It's not solutions.
All right.
All right, everybody take a deep breath. We're back on.
Motion.
There we go.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
All righty.
That was fun.
Intermission.
Okay, so we left off with our conceptual drivers, right? Our goals, objectives to the design for the process. When we then look to essentially build up the blocks of the building, starting with the sites, that constrained site, which really is a fantastic opportunity for us. Switch to this screen. From this relationship to
We're losing it.
Screen behind us.
This one too.
I'm gonna go grab my computer.
Yeah, tell me to go.
Yeah, it's
Random access. Drop it as a. Probably should be really.
Yeah, I think that's helpful.
But we also just online, it's just gonna share their screen.
Okay.
Why would we do that?
We do that?
That's what we got. We asked the chair.
Sure, yeah.
I asked the director.
I think we.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Lisa, are you on still? Sorry.
That's a smart.
Lisa Jones, are you on?
She wouldn't have left.
Lisa's on, it might be better because she's on their Wi-Fi. AB, do you have her? Or we're not muted, are we guys?
Yes.
No.
No, we're not.
I heard all that intermission, by the way, so we heard all the commentary during the intermission.
Can you guys hear me? I am here.
Hey, Lisa, would you mind sharing your screen?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you'll be able to. Unless they give you permission, there isn't permission to share. Can you give permission? There you go.
Yeah,
Can you guys see?
yes.
Okay, great.
And then Lisa, Lisa will advance your slides. Right, guys, because there's no,
Thank you.
okay, great. Thank you.
Where do you guys want me to start here?
Next one, Lisa.
get there for a second.
Yeah.
What's my second move, creating that podium, that build pedestrian connection, activating that water. I just then look to push. Very good. Then we go into the additional massing above grade, which has a larger footprint, creating some cantilevers, overhang conditions. Ultimately, this all comes together to create more of a conceptual massing design here. We're starting to articulate and choreograph the facade with that movement of the massing. Seeing the practice courts and performance space elevating above that. Moving then to the next slides and into the site design and location within the downtown flats. Next slide.
Can you move closer to the mic?
The next slide then starts to look at markers around the site, in particular Rocket Mortgage Field House, amongst others. And then into the next slide again, elements adjacent to the site, the Corex facility as well as existing Eagle Road Bridge. On the next slides, this is our existing site conditions, that program dominantly being open parking lots across all three parcels. Next slides. We are looking at imagery starting at the southernmost portion of the site along West 3rd. Moving up, we do have them sequentially and numbered in the bottom right corner. Moving through West 3rd to adjacent lots and then towards that viewpoint towards the river, as well as the intersection with Stones Levy. Next slide, please. Starting at the top left, that intersection between Eagle Roads, West 3rd and the current pump station location, and then moving in towards parcel 17 in particular, our existing condition. Slide. We have included a tree preservation plan on the existing sites. These would be removed, but we are including a substantial increase in the number of total trees on sites. Slide. And we can pause here for a little bit, going through that site plan, and we can point out some of the key aspects of the design.
Madam Chair, if we're not gonna review site today, would it be helpful to just review the building? I'm not sure.
This is the building site plan, so short of the public realm review.
Okay.
All of this is under consideration.
With this site plan, north is to the left of the screen as we look at it. Starting again towards the south, we do have our two parking lots, A and B, running along West Thurs. Those are bisected by entry coming off West Thurs, which is currently looked at as being a 30-foot wide entry that is for fire access as well as vehicular access, which then continues east, following the east side of the clinic towards our service area, loading area. This is predominantly service vehicles. As we begin to move further north towards the clinic aspects of the program, we do have a drop-off. Again, this is a one-way access, entry and exit from West Thurs. We are looking at potential revisions here to expand the width of that entry to 26 feet, as well as making sure that we have 100 feet of frontage between that entry and exit. Moving then across Eagle Avenue towards the majority of the training facility programming, we do have a lobby entry plaza area at that intersection, as well as an angled private drive that would be a very low volume, not continuous throughout the year. We then move towards the Riverwalk, looking at how we can bring in landscaping and activating that area, particularly as we come towards the north. We have a retail unit there with approximately 60 feet of place acquisition. Towards the east, we do have a 20-foot offset of the building edge to the new roadway. This is being used as vehicular access into that parking garage, as well as much needed additional stalls within that area. We do have a 10-foot offset for construction of new roadways. This is looking to really maximize the use of that space. We can move to the next slide. We did want to come back to where we were in concept design. This diagram is showing in red footprint at ground level of the training facility program, as it is for our schematic design. Yellow, which is that larger footprint, is where we were at concept design. Following those comments, we've looked to really increase the size of that riverwalk and that pedestrian experience, creating more pedestrian areas and more landscape, both along that west and then also towards the north as well. Slides. Showing our primary entry and egress throughout the building. Slides. This is speaking more to the public realm aspects adjacent to the building, and kind of speak to this series of slides.
And again, being with permission, I will pressure time on to go through this quickly, but happy to answer any questions if we have. So looking at the context around the building and within the public realm, we have the Riverwalk moving along the primary frontage to the river with an entrance directly onto that Riverwalk from an activating space in the building, and then connecting to what we've shown as the kayak drop off and kayak launch at the end, and connecting into the street infrastructure at West Third. Next slide. We also have, as part of the framework for the master plan, connectivity to the remainder of the street grid for the rest of the site, including bicycle and pedestrian and multimodal opportunities for connectivity around. So you're seeing pedestrian connection flow through along Eagle, as well as bike and cycle activity down Eagle Ave. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. And we're very much understanding and looking to improve all of the major interactions that are happening at this intersection. To its credit, it's going to be very activated. There are a lot of things happening here, and we're excited about that opportunity here and how that
is going to be the beginning of the riverfront. We're also looking at how to best coordinate those elements, how to coordinate the cycle track moving into West Third and into that infrastructure, how to connect pedestrians on the sidewalk to the Riverwalk, and how to do that in an organized fashion. And so that's depicted here, but we also want to note that we are in active conversations with the city regularly about how to best achieve all of these different types of connections. Next slide, please. And then finally, this is a little bit of you're looking in bird's eye view, looking down at the CADS and Brick building from Eagle Ave to Page South. It's showing the service access that goes underneath Eagle Ave, and then above that is the public realm infrastructure showing pedestrian, cycle track, and then a convergence of that. We're also looking at this system in terms of how to better connect the cycle track down at the Riverwalk edge and see if that's a possibility rather than this mixing zone here. So that was in coordination with our city conversations. Next slide, please. And finally, just looking at how this connects into the infrastructure and the towpath trail that's further down West Third and up East 9th extension, and how we can knit this all together into existing infrastructure. Slide. I will come back to these if time permits or if there are questions, but this is just showing some of the cross sections and spatial configuration of those public realm elements. So our site plan here showing the dimensional aspects of the site. Next slide, please. Our cross sections at each. So this is looking at West Third streetscape and that buffer along the parking lot. Next slide, please. How the streetscape passes under the CABS clinic and performance facility above and the space under that occupied space. Next slide, please. As we move up Eagle Ave and the space where the cycle track, sidewalk, and travel lanes, moving through that area. Next slide, please. And that connectivity continuing up at the top of Eagle Ave with the more generous space that we have allowed here. Next slide, please. And then finally, this is looking at new roadway adjacent to the CABS building and the space that's available there for public realm opportunities. Next slide, please.
Moving now into the building design, looking at the massing within context, approximate overall square footages, 155,000 for the train facility, and 55,000 for the clinic program. Next slide. Going into that site design, it's look and feel towards the landscaping and the vegetation, looking towards native plants, also being very seasonal and being very mindful about maintenance as well within these areas. Next slide. Moving into hardscape, looking at minimal palettes, focusing pavers, for example, in some key areas and plaza spaces and lobbies, but looking to have a uniform feel throughout the sites of the project. Next slide. Moving then into benches and planters, site furnishing to give some vibrancy and light and life. We have looked towards the use of Core 10. This is something to hark back towards that industrial heritage. As we're designing this, we're going to be very careful in terms of the detailing and how this relates to that ground plane and making sure we don't have any kind of bleeding or staining from that Core 10 material. And we then also have greenhouse benches and planters around the sites. Next slide. Looking now into some of the key areas of where the building and landscape come together, particularly at the Riverwalk. Starting on the left, our North Retail Plaza element. This seems more of a collector space for people. We're starting to understand the location of that retail component, that activation towards the portion. On the right, we then have more of our typical section through the building towards the Riverwalk. We discussed expanding that area from where we were in concept, looking towards landscape to create a buffer between those pedestrian areas and the building edge. Size. Then moving into more the plaza areas and the lobbies towards the training facility on the left and the clinic drop-off and entry to the right. Slides. Mentioned the planting, we've included a full plant list, again with that focus on seasonality. It's plants. Slides. We've also included plans. We don't need to go into this in too much detail, but we do have a large amount of landscape within those areas, particularly where we see pedestrian focus. Next slide then, we'll be moving towards the parking spaces towards the south, again having that consistent landscape, softer edge. Next slides. Looking at our materiality and how that is spread throughout the site. Move on to our next slides.
Xavier.
I'm gonna try to reshare. Hold on. I'm getting a white screen too.
Xavier. It's supposed to mirror that screen.
But I mean, is he up? Oh.
I could check.
Sorry, they were advanced.
No, what that screen is.
I can share again, I just got to pick up on that, right?
Right.
Thanks, Xavier.
Yep.
Again, we can move to the next slide. So here, looking towards the lighting around the site, both pedestrian scale and also parking and vehicular, as well as accent lighting, particularly at planters and benches around that river walk and entry locations. Next slide. This plan then detailing where those different types of fixtures are located. Next slide. Again towards the south. Next slide, please. Looking then into the site furnishings and having some variation in terms of use of material from the timber through to precast elements as well. We can move to the next slide. Excellent. So looking then at where we can start to place these different furnishings to have different experiences, looking towards that North Plaza entry in particular, of how we can have some more individual seating elements, really activate that portion. Then included the massing of the building with existing context, as well as aspects such as the new roadway and the extension of Eagle Avenue. I'm looking at all sides of the building here. Moving into the plans, and we'll spend a little bit of time on level one. In particular, towards the right of the screen, we have the clinic lobby that will be coming from that drop-off condition, facing out towards West 3rd. As we move along to the other side of Eagle Avenue, we have the public lobby space for the training facility. That does have a heavily landscape area and plaza in front of it. Moving then towards this driveway into the garage. As mentioned, this will be a low volume amount of traffic. We have paid special attention in terms of how we can design the planters around that area, both to start to screen that roadway, but also influence the pathways and flows of people within that area. As we move north, we do have our parking spaces within that ground level. On the west side, we do have a number of mechanical spaces which are determined by the programming above, such as the hydrotherapy areas. As we continue to move north, we've really focused to try and activate that corner as much as we can with that retail space and having as much livable within that area as possible. We then do have our loading area towards the top corner as we look on the screen underneath Eagle Avenue Bridge, and then an additional lane towards the west. As we move up through the building, the second level is primarily used for basketball program, as you see the practice courts here. Moving up into the third level, predominantly more of the office spaces. We do also see now that connection between clinic program and the Training City program. We can touch on that a little bit later, but really that's the heart of the connecting these programs together, really key space. Moving up to the fourth level, we see the pop-out volumes of that performance space as well as the practice courts. We also have mechanical penthouses up here. We are also planning to maximize how this space can be programmed as well. We have a number of sections. I don't need to go into these in too much detail. This would be longitudinal through that Training Facility program. This would be transverse going east to west through the practice court with programming on either side. Looking now parallel to the Eagle Road, space above. Looking at Eagle Road again and making sure that we both maintain and exceed any minimum requirements in terms of roadway head heights. And then looking towards more of the clinic program on the south side. Here we really want to focus on programming of that performance space. So it crosses over and connects this programming together. This is a very active element. We have a half-court basketball space. We have a running track as well. We have glazing on both sides, so this is really something that can create visual connections to what's happening within the building, especially from that approach on the east, which is so important. Moving into the building facade is materiality. This is our look and feel across the building. Starting on the left, we have this textured concrete, which we have at the podium level. There is a significant amount of glazing as well. Building, introducing frit patterns within that. Then we're starting to look at these bronze tones, which we're really looking for some variation of rich color and texture there, both in terms of metal panels for opaque walls above the ground level condition, then also this series of blades which we have choreographed around that facade glazing. We do also have some warmer timber tones coming in, particularly at the soft conditions. We've included the elevations to give an idea of where these different materials are located on the building. This would be the west elevation. We have a majority of glazing, levels 2 and 3. At ground level podium being the textured concrete as well as the glazing of lobbies retail where we can. And then above going into more of that bronze tone. From the south, we see predominantly where the dimension is. That would be the clinic program. Then moving beyond Eagle Road towards the right. Being from the east, again, those bronze tones. We do have some more reference to those in our final renderings that are included. And then the vantage point from the north elevation. We have included where each of these materials are located in the building. We'll try and look through these. And now into some of our three-dimensional renderings, trying to get a sense of, again, where some of that materiality come in. The primary focus here really though is to get more of a sense for the spatial qualities from a pedestrian standpoint as we move around the building. So again, some of those colors and tones of materiality are probably better shown in some of our final renderings. This would be the view from West 3rd, approaching towards the clinic program. We have the drop-off. We have a lot of glazing as well, really trying to activate that portion facing out to West 3rd. Moving then towards that intersection of Eagle West 3rd, the landscape areas around the building, creating that transition between these roadways and the plaza spaces. Here we have that performance space above, really paying attention to what that soffit can be, really trying to elevate this experience into something special, something that can be almost a gateway as you move down Eagle Avenue. Towards the kayak area, This has the lobby for the training facility towards the right, the river walk towards the left. See some private drive as well. In the middle, the approach to the lobby and the use of these planters to really guide people in and around the site. Vantage points along the river walk looking towards Tower City and how we can start to integrate landscape as a buffer between the buildings, those opaque walls, real activation on the riverfront. And then that view really all coming together, that vantage point from the river. From the north towards that retail plaza area. Outside of that retail with the overhang and soffit condition. This would be from the roadway connection and higher vantage points against the building. The service and loading areas, which is to the east avenue. And then we can move into some of our final.
Almost done here. A few more slides. Just to, in terms of the final renderings here on the stage, you can really see now the coloration, the lighting, the landscape quality really coming to life. The different tones that Jack spoke about, the movement along the pedestrian scale, Eagle Road coming through, there'll be that lighting effect over your head to really make that portal a gateway and an entryway to the area. We're now coming around the building. One of the amazing qualities of the building is the bend of the building. And through that, we're able to get the views of the building, lots of different vantage points in the way that the vertical elements have that choreography going around that exterior and create a different look and a different feel as you move around the building. Key for the cabs and the clinic is porosity of the building, and that's why we've gone in this direction with the prominence of the glazing from the interior condition, the views out to the waterfront, but the blades will offer solar control and mitigation in terms of more sustainable strategies and the way that our building systems will operate. Back to the clinic side here to the south, the presence of the clinic aspect of the building, really the first thing you see as you're coming down West 3rd, and a stepping of the massing to create some relief so there wasn't such a vertical wall along that street. The last image there, which is really the first one that we started with, featuring the prow of the ship, if you will, on the northern edge of the primary cab spaces inside. I think we're going to spare everybody the appendix slides. Is that correct?
Is that okay to the chair and the director? I would just note, Chair, to the commission, the appendix does contain items that address some conditions from our conceptual review. So as we need to, and maybe if questions arise, we can jump to the appendix. That there is a good amount of information. Okay.
We'll see what questions we have. Before I open it up to commission members for questions, I will ask if there is anybody online who would like to speak or ask a question. I know this is unusual, but we decided, since this is a significant project, to open it up for a second. I don't see any hands raised or anyone in the room, but I just want to check. Okay, so commission members, any questions, clarification, or comments?
Madam Chair, we do have a staff report. Would that be helpful for the commission?
Yes.
Yes, that would.
Okay, thank you. So Madam Chair, members of the commission, just wanted to go over the staff report with you. What you have in front of you and what's in the Dropbox for those online is the schematic approval when this project came through Downtown Flats about 2 weeks ago. So the conditions there are pretty lengthy. I'm going to summarize those into the top 4 big pieces. If you need me to go into any details on any of those conditions, I'm happy to do so. I just wanted to emphasize, we've been working very collaboratively with the Bedrock team for the last, year plus on this project. And we are very much in the weeds still, very appreciative of the collaboration that we've had. But lots of elements are still being worked through, and part of that is why you see such an extensive set of conditions, particularly in the public realm. I know that we're not really looking at the public realm, but we are looking at where those elements of the architecture interface with the public realm. The one note from Downtown Flats is that the committee chair has asked that the applicant return for an information only review, because there was some things missing in their application at that time. And that they just want to see a lot of this commentary picked up before they come back for final approval. So just that as a note. With that, I'm going to jump into the big elements of, and Downtown Cleveland had a letter of support as well for the project. That's in the Dropbox. I'll read it now. Going back to the original conceptual approval carried through to schematic was this idea of the Riverwalk experience for users of the Riverwalk having that active use on the ground level. There's still more than half of that space being back of house, mechanical, garage entry for quite a significant distance, and that remains a concern that came up with the committee and the staff. Moving on to the intersection at Eagle and New Roadway, in this term that we're calling the pits. And I'll just kind of point some of these out, but this is your key prominent, coming down the new Eagle Avenue Bridge from Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. This is the first thing you see, and there's a lot here to take in. So there's 7-foot fencing blocking those areas that we call the pits, which if we get into some of the architectural thought processes and what came up in Downtown Flats Design Committee was this idea of really addressing this corner and having that be a prominent entrance. And the Cavs at that time had indicated they were interested in doing so. So that's something that we're really excited and look to hear more about. But this is what we have right now. And the pits, what they are is really the need for that 7-foot fence is because there's a 20-foot drop off. And you can kind of see that back here, particularly the pit on the north side. We feel is a little bit problematic from a pedestrian standpoint. Just having this should be a very prominent first impression, iconic moment as you come down that Eagle Avenue Bridge. And the same kind of ran up New Roadway as well. Obviously on the river, very iconic, fantastic architectural elements. But as you go down and sort of blocked by this tree, is essentially an empty facade, and that's quite a distance of a facade being empty. And we really want this to be, again, a prominent location that pedestrians feel really good coming down. This is actually where some of the bike paths will go, key pedestrian corridor, something that should be considered in our discussions today. Also wanted to mention the from conceptual on to now, this idea of the West 3rd and Eagle intersection and all the things at play in that space. It's almost becoming like it's really a 3-point intersection, but it's almost becoming like a 6 or 7 point because you do have these roadways coming into both the kayak or to all of the kayak launch, the player executive parking entrance, the main entrance, people dropping off kayaks, people on the Riverwalk moving through this space. So this becomes very intensive in terms of the quantity of users and conflicting uses that could occur in that space. And the committee remained very sensitive to the safety component of that and concerned about how do you make all those things work as safely as possible. And I think obviously we're not really looking deeply at public realm. The applicant will come back for things like the kayak launch and the Riverwalk as we go along. But how the building components create those situations is something that we should discuss today. And this kind of just illustrates what some of those concerns are when you start to get into all the different user groups that will move through this space. It becomes a lot of different activities moving through here all at the same time. And we just need to continue working through that and understand, how do we make these things work without having to eliminate some of the public realm amenities that we hope that space will have. And that's just another view of that space where you can kind of see all these elements coming together. Another element that came up that the committee really emphasized was the roof line. It's great to hear that the applicant is still looking at what can be done at that space going forward. But this is a very prominent location, seen from above. Certainly will be part of those fly-throughs during game days, and quite an iconic building. And they felt that the roof line could match the rest of the architecture better in terms of a sculptural form and having that iconic view. Just wanted to note, because we are looking at schematic review today, what does that really mean? That gives an applicant the ability to set their foundation, pull foundation permits, set their building footprint. And there's a lot of things still in flux adjacent to that building now. Things like the roadway, the bridges, park and trail development, all of those things are touching that project, or this project, and still very much in flux. And a schematic approval starts to lock in those site constraints that we're getting at now. The nice thing, though, is that it allows the applicant to go after long lead time items. They have indicated that they would like to break ground later this year, so that's a consideration for the committee as well. I think at the end of the day, there's still solutions not yet determined for areas of the right-of-way, the air rights and straddling of the roadway, overall site access. That should all be considered from the committee today. With that, I'll give it back to Madam Chair.
Thank you. That was a good report. You can leave it on this slide as we open it up. So commission members will ask for any questions or comments at this time.
I guess I'll start. First, I just want to commend you all. When I look at this as a child, I used to go down in the flats and watch the barges go down the river. Used to bike, and I believe the architecture and sort of the emotion that it's evoked harkens back to barges, and it actually does a good job of tying the industrial part of the valley and the bridges. It does it really well. It's not trying to mimic anything. I think it's a really good representation of what good, nicely designed and thoughtful architecture it could be. As it relates to the comment about the traffic at that intersection, I'm not convinced it's a problem totally. I think sometimes our mind tries to make it a problem because there's a confluence of activity, but those activities are probably intermittent. Some of them happen off hours. So I'm not totally convinced that that's an issue. I think you have to be able to reconcile it. And I thought it was a good reconciliation of that. And lastly, more importantly, I know we're not here for the public realm. As a biker, and when I'm using a multi-purpose trail in this city, it's confusing with pedestrians still, right? When you're riding, which side people, sometimes it's not delineated. So as we start talking about how people go to and fro, let's talk about it, how we can manage that. And lastly, more importantly, I don't know if there's a public art component here, and I'm not talking about murals. I'm talking about how we can creatively deal with, as you refer to, the pits. Maybe there's a way to come up with some creative solutions without pretending that they don't exist. Quite frankly, sometimes you embrace the challenge and then you come up with really interesting solutions. Thank you.
I agree with Commission Member Fluker. And this won't come as a surprise to anyone, but the kind of messiness and the activity is what we're really after. As they said, sort of like the activation is, for me, the most important part. And so, full disclosure, and I'm conflicted, I'm a kayaker. And I love kayaking. And I've been across the whole region in terms of where there are kayak launches. So this will be a place that people will use, and it will be a very cool place to launch your kayak. I think the issue will be just the drop off, and then where people will go to park once they drop their kayak off. I think that's the issue there. But the activity at that intersection is actually something we're after, that it feel alive, and that the more people that are there, the safer an environment is. So if we go back to that rendering, I think I do like the bookend idea of the boardwalk, the life of the kayak launch, and then the other end, which is described as retail plaza. So I have a specific question, which is, what is retail plaza? And what is the retail? And what is the envisioned hours of it? At least where it is to date. So describe what retail plaza actually means for the public.
It's a great question, and we know that it was raised in the last meeting. We actually have a rendering that had been developed just before this meeting. We weren't able to bring it today. But it really highlights the activation of this corner up here at the north. And that plaza will be alive. It'll draw people in. We also had to work out the rest of the programming for the building. So in terms of where we're actually able to permeate the perimeter of the ground floor, that was the prime spot. Maybe we could go back to the last image you had up there.
What is the retail that's envisioned? What kind of retail?
Yeah, Madam Chair, since you are an active kayaker and will be using the area, we're taking and soliciting ideas.
You'll be selling kayaks? Are you selling kayaks?
All that to be said, what we've contemplated is two forms of retail. Currently, one is a coffee shop concept and the other is a Cavs retail store that would extend our brand. And so we still need to get into the kind of business practicality of what would work there and what is needed in the neighborhood, but those are some of what we're contemplating. And when I say coffee shop, think of something like what you've seen at Etro, which is in the Intro building, which is something that's a little more of a contemporary or modern place where you can grab a light piece of fare as well as a cup of coffee or some type of beverage. So we haven't solidified that though, but we are, as I said, soliciting ideas.
Okay, I'm soliciting for both. I think you should think about both retail and the cafe. Because I think the idea that people not only can congregate there, but they also can touch and feel what the building is about, and commerce is always good. You could sell life vests there as well. Cabs or clinic, we can have them be, actually, it's not, now that I say that, it'd probably be a very lucrative business for branded life vests. I'm joking, but I'll make one comment and then Erica has her hand raised. I would say that I think that for me in seeing this, the advancement of the design and the detail, I think is really excellent. I think for me, the articulation and the continued development of the activation and the kind of way that people are going to feel alongside this, it is setting a very high bar in a good way for how many things that Bedrock is going to do are going to meet the river and begin to piece together a continuous public realm. And that is our purview. That is our most important, I'd say, responsibility as the Planning Commission, which is to both from a design, but really from a policy point of view, ensure a continuous riverfront and lakefront. And I think this sets the bar very high, especially because the project is actually delivering the first sort of public boardwalk piece of this. So I want to commend you for that. I do think that the staff has good comments to consider in terms of still refining it further that you should consider. And I do think Commission Member Fluker's idea of thinking about, and I don't mean sculpture, but how the sequence of coming down from the pit, how that actually is an opportunity to do something extraordinary, whether it's how it's lit or are there objects along it that make it also interesting, is a really good idea that he had. So I commend you. I think that that this is a pretty important first project for the riverfront, and so both commend the Cavs and the clinic. And then Erica has her hand raised.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and apologies for being off camera. I'm home today and I have a dog that keeps trying to be a part of the meeting. So to minimize disruption. Thank you again for the presentation. Just want to double tap on a couple of the comments that have been made. I also was thinking about the public art aspect for that particular area and just thinking of creative ways, particularly as we think about, just the robust creative economy we have here in the city of Cleveland and, an integrated way to welcome local artists and creatives to be a part of this iconic project. Was also curious about the retail space and just sort of the vision around that. I think my question, in reflecting on, I know while public realm is not the priority for today, I think as the conversation continues, just thinking of the ways that, as I would categorize, organized chaos, right? I think, congestion and sort of traffic and activity can be a good thing and a positive thing. As someone who grew up in New York, there's a lot of organized chaos, right? But it's about, the creative ways that, signage is placed and wayfinding is made available so that folks are, not feeling confused, of course, as they navigate and make their way through. But I think the goal is obviously for there to be high volume and sort of the connectivity of residents and what that means for what this iconic place will be. Thank you.
So I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but I'm going to disagree with some of my colleagues with that. That first off, I guess the confluence that Dan is talking about, I'm not necessarily convinced because at least we're not talking about the rest of the public realm, but a good portion of what might make that less concerning is what we're not actually talking about, like how people skirt around the kayak launch and then get around there, because that's not part of the presentation today. I think to I guess the corners coming off of Eagle Avenue, I know there's like a grade change there, that one planter that sandwiches the street, but I'm wondering if potentially instead of getting people to come directly to the end of the street to then go into the building, if there's any way to incorporate stairs or something that kind of breaks that facade, instead of, again, you're walking through the tunnel and you have to come to the end of the sidewalk to then go into the building. I would maybe ask again in the kind of materiality of the furnishings in the public realm, maybe we don't go like an overkill of Corten. I think the building expression is gorgeous, industrial heritage all the way, but maybe we don't have to build that into the landscape as well. I'm kind of confused about what is a cycle track, a multi-purpose trail, or is it a cycle track?
It's a dedicated cycle track.
Okay.
So that's part of the all this. So, the element that's coming down, people have.
Gotcha. In those sections, there's also a building buffer zone. Can we talk about what that is? Like a 7-foot building buffer zone? What is a building buffer zone?
Go to the site plan.
What's the section?
Okay. Which intersection is this?
I think it's the Eagle Ave section. Yeah.
So the 7-foot areas are additional public realm space.
Okay.
We're working with the city to identify what exactly that is. It underneath of that is likely built to buffer between the MSC structures of the program and the buildings themselves.
Gotcha. So there might be like things for people to potentially sit on, some kind of amenity in that zone?
Yes, we would
Okay.
look at the pedestrian side.
Okay.
We are looking at all of this public realm interaction between cyclists, pedestrians, and vehicles at this point.
Gotcha. With the site furnishings, the 6 loungers in the kind of the adjacency to the retail plaza space seem a bit light to me. I'm wondering again, as you guys think about what is in that retail space, what the site furnishing package there would help that retail opportunity. Again, thinking that the adjacent space is going to be developed, the 6 loungers just seem like maybe a step in the wrong direction too early. The seat walls probably the right way to go. One thing that I think is interesting, I mean, the facade treatment is really nice, but I think the material diagrams show that a good portion of the pedestrian experience walking along the riverfront, you're just going to see that concrete facade. And I know it says that well, I know you might be looking up to see like the glazing, but at least at pedestrian height, and you can comment on this, but at pedestrian height, it seems like a majority of that is going to be concrete expression. And while it's not articulated in there what that final thing is going to be, I'm wondering again, so much intensity in kind of the building design and the see-through nature of being above the pedestrian viewpoint, especially along the riverfront corridor. And I'm wondering if that's like a mismatch of resources expenditure. One thing, let's see what else.
It's a very good point that I think should be addressed when you come back.
And I would say that
By the way, I just wanted to add, so to the commissioner member, as you're continuing, I do think to the team, this image and the point that was just made about the fact that at a pedestrian level, your primary experience is concrete. Is there something additional that can be done in the articulation there? The landscaping will help, but it never quite, realizes its, screening potential. It never does, ever. So that is something worth addressing.
I could jump in and respond to that real quick. We haven't demonstrated it very well today, but that's intended to be a textured concrete, which makes it very tactile in appearance of great light and shadow. And there's also integrated lighting, so vertical lighting. So I don't think we should think of it as a blank concrete wall.
Okay.
It'll have a human scale texture to it.
It still is a solid concrete wall, even with texture. So I do think a little more thought would be good. I mean, it even if it's textured and even if you landscape, I think lighting it at night might help, but during the day, it's a solid wall. So are there other things you can do to enhance that experience a little bit? I mean, I'm not even, I have to be honest, I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I would even be a fan of thinking about it as a opportunity for, don't kill me, Director Wong, for signage, for graphics, for storytelling, for excitement, something else too, like why not? It could be more than just solid. So is there a beautiful way to think about that as something you use to tell the story?
We'll absolutely look into that.
Yeah, one other thing, just to chime into Jonathan's point, and I appreciate the feedback on the concrete wall. One other thing that's not fully articulated here, and I really like what Member Fluker mentioned as well around the pits, is an entire art package that will be layered into this dynamic, which will be a very important part, I would say, from our chairman and chairwoman's perspective, Dan and Jennifer Gilbert. There will absolutely be an art package that's layered into here. And so I think as we contemplate how we evolve this from here, trying to mitigate some of these circumstances from a concrete or contextual perspective, or even what's being used to kind of activate these spaces and tell more of a real life story. We'll take all of that feedback into account as we come back and as we evolve some of the more granular details of how we want to bring this project to life. Great feedback across the board.
I think.
Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
Yeah, just two final comments. I think the renders were really beautiful, but I think in the next step of detail, some of the renders show like, and again, the fins are probably doing some of this, but there's no seams or no breaks in any of the glass. It's just like, almost like a Samsung bendable screen glass, So I'm just wondering again, we're seeing like this beautiful display of like, see-through glazing, but then actually when you get into the detailing and we're seeing those seams, does it still match up to the final product? And I'm not saying there's like a bait and switch, but a lot of those, really beautiful architectural projects, the renders look great. And then when you get into the details of like how these, especially when it's like high intensity glass, it doesn't look as seamless, right? So hoping the next time when we see this, we see some of those details, and also in the renderings. And I mean, some of the other things like the vertical pickets where I think the sign is on one side, it's like it's almost like freestanding pickets that are like 40 feet tall, and then the sign is like attached. It's just like that level of like criticality would be nice to see in the next iteration.
just one thing on one comment, that we are happy to report that the vertical seams are behind the blades.
Okay.
So there is.
Okay.
And the horizontal seams are in there, if we zoom in look close, but we'll make it more evident in the details.
I was gonna say, maybe some of my other commission members might not want to see it, but I'd like to see it.
No problem.
Technical question, I guess this is the Bedrock team. Everything we're seeing in terms of the boardwalk, the bulkhead, the bike path is part of the project, right? When this is done, that will be done too, correct?
Madam Chair, that's correct.
Okay, excellent.
I'm wondering procedurally, do we know when, or if you guys will come back for a final, is that coming back for something, for this coming back for final, like how, you know, like to the point about maybe, again, not just the congestion at that one intersection, but how these two things are integrated, especially from the public realm standpoint, like what is the timetable for coming back for approvals? That we can view it all together.
So to the chair, but really to the director, we're gonna defer to the city. To the opening comments, we are working with city staff on the master development plan in the interim. So we were talking, you know, in terms of overall sequence. One that tells obviously the best story of the overall project. It ties together those main elements, but also satisfies our master development agreement between Bedrock and the city of Cleveland and allows for the master development plan to come before this commission. So we really want the planning staff to tell us in terms of what comes next and then what makes the most sense with those other obligations.
So our desire is to have the master development plan before you, so you can see, again, the big picture. You know, none of these things happen in isolation. As you know, to your point, the master development plan will talk about the entirety of the project, really in much more detail around the public realm, and sequencing wise, we want that to happen before really coming back for final.
Yeah.
And then before any other projects as well, other verticals. So with the master development plan, you will have a much more detailed framework around whether it's design and mobility and access points and all that.
If I may also to the commission, what we attempted to do and focus obviously being on the building was to allow for certain exhibits that told that broader story, certainly the site context of the building, but then how we are meeting the seams. And again, in the appendix, we did kayak launch analytics, you know, understanding the focus was elsewhere. But we appreciate that we're telling one chapter, we want to come back for the next
one. I'll jump in. And as starting with the intersection we've all talked about, you know, I don't think like exploring whether it's raised crosswalks, pavers, things like that. Like I tend to agree with Erica that like the organized chaos is not just possible, but also I think it acknowledges human behavior. And not to relitigate Public Square, but one of my frustrations with like how we ended up with Public Square, I feel like it's over signalized and how traffic moves and car drivers don't follow it. People go where they go. So I think we should recognize people are going to kind of cut across, and what do we just need to do to mitigate someone taking a corner quickly and pulling into the parking garage to kind of cause them to slow down. But I think it's possible. A comment for the city, I think. So the cycle track is on 3rd and then goes up Eagle as well, right? Is that, I think we need to have a deeper conversation about how we rethink West 3rd all the way into like Tremont across the bridge and then up Ontario. Right now, it effectively would be a cycle track to nowhere. And I think that like in Ontario, which is like the width that looks like it's designed for like a North Korean military parade, it's just enormous. Like there's opportunities to make it, it's too wide. We have opportunities to actually connect this into the downtown framework more and then down into Tremont. And I just want to make sure that we understand that needs to be our side of the project beyond the confines of this immediate project. It looks like you have
Yes,
a thought.
if I may, to chair the councilman, thank you. It's very helpful comment. I do want to say we're ahead of you.
Okay.
Both together with the city staff, but also the concurrent and leverage projects elsewhere in the city. So in terms of West 3rd Street, and I'm getting into public realm, but we have coordinated with the city's MOCAP staff work that ODOT is doing. And our team, our master plan team is connecting south, not only to Stratton Flats, but we met with Mary Chase the other day, and the Memorial Loop, Midway, understanding that those were hard-won projects and dollars. We want to make sure we're joining that leverage, and so that we are also not not just disconnected, but in a vacuum in terms of our bike and ped facilities.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then obviously these are going to be the elevations that'll like make the ESPN shot, right? But I think I tend to agree with design review partially in that the main entrance for many people is just going to be coming down Eagle Avenue. And I want to make sure that that's really impressive if you're bringing a recruit, that the first thing that they see is going to be, doesn't feel like it's like the back, this is certainly a building that has no back door. I'm not sure I entirely understand the design review's recommendation of getting rid of the pit. How does one access the pit?
Underneath.
Like, is it from Eagle Avenue, or is there like a separate entryway? Yeah. So I actually think that it's valuable to have it like this because it pulls trucks away from like the user is not going to experience industrial traffic coming and going. It has like its own separate route.
Madam Chair, to the councilman, I could give some clarity to the Downtown Flats Design Review comment. Really what they were curious about is how that pit separates you from the building. And, again, like being able to enter that building at this level, at this location, the first place that you encounter it. So the pits, I think, are great use of space for delivery, drop off of materials, even pulling into the parking deck below. But what is the pedestrian experience was their concern, and how if we just see fencing and 20-foot drop offs, we end up with similar pits to what we have near Tower City that look deep down in.
Sure.
It's sort of the guts of the project.
Okay, gotcha. And whether it's planners or things like kind of brighten this up, and I think that's maybe that's obvious. Where is the railroad being pulled out for as part of this, or is the railroad adjacent to it? There's like the railroad line.
The CSX line or the
The CSX, like the one that I think it's abandoned right now, the abandoned railroad line. Yeah.
They maintain behind the site.
Okay.
If you're on Third Street looking up to Ontario, they all stay within their current line, which is behind parking.
Okay. I just wanted to, because I think when we've talked a lot, Deb, like I've come to the understanding that the scenic railroad coming all the way up to the old B&O is probably not going to happen. But what I wanted to make sure is that we're not abandoning that line and having to push any future station further south, and that it would almost become like effectively not a downtown accessible amenity. So I was just curious of how it aligned with this site plan. So that's useful to know.
Madam Chair, to the councilman, we continue to be at the table with the city, NOACA, our other partners on that effort in looking at the right connection point for CVSR as they continue their work. We believe we are aligned on how to incorporate that, leveraging West Third Street. And again, to the director's point, to my colleague's point, how do we make sure that incorporates into public realm and the controlled chaos? But we continue to look at Third Street as that key connector and being able to integrate that additional ability and historical alignment to this site.
Okay, yeah, I think it'd be a really neat parallel amenity that helps draw people in. So,
Madam Chair, to the commission member, there is talk about that line coming, because this is, to your point, where that rail line is about here, and having that line drop off around this location.
Okay, yeah, and so I think like any further south from this, I think starts to get troublesome just for me. But I think that this is still part of the downtown core as this is all built up. It's access. Someone from Akron theoretically could take the railroad up for a Cavs game if the schedule allowed for it. So that's a passion point of mine. So
one final comment. I know that DCA is doing a bit of lighting reconfiguration in downtown, thinking of making event, kind of lighting 2 Cavs games. I'm wondering if that expression can happen here, early coordination with some of the light fixtures. So when, I mean, what I was told is like when, it's like wine and gold, the tower, it could be wine and gold here as well, so.
We're gonna make the thing shine. We'll definitely light it up, for sure.
So I think we're gonna need, this is schematic motion. Obviously the design review comments are in writing. But if we might need to add some of our additional commentary. So I'm going to August.
I knew you were gonna say all. Anyway, before I do that, I just wanna, there's a lot going on here, guys, and my brain can only process so much. Your brain can only process so much. It seems like 3 major things going on here, and we're gonna have to be able, I mean, there's this global thing, how you connect to other parts of the city and downtown. There's a master plan for Bedrock, and there's this specific project. I think we need to give time for things to mature, patina, right? And it's a process, and maybe there's a separate venue to talk about the global things in the master plan and not sort of conflate what this project's trying to do with everything else, because sometimes, we sort of go off the tracks. That's just a human condition. That's just my general perspective. I think it's all great stuff. And one last thing, the comment I'm going to try and make, we're trying to put 5 pounds of stuff in a 2-pound bag. Now, oftentimes when you do that in cities, in condensed and very congested cities, these things happen. We just need to, as a Cleveland, we need to grow up and deal with them, right? I've been totally honest. That's just my perspective. So I'm going to make an attempt to make a motion. I move to approve schematic design as presented herein with the following caveats. That the applicant take in consideration the comments and motions made in the design review meeting that happened on April 4th. There's no date on the front cover. Anyway, April 4th, 2024. Also, that you take into consideration the promenade or the walkway along the concrete wall and how to fenestrate that properly. Strong consideration should be given to how one traverses down West 3rd as you enter into the site and entrance. Also that the applicant, when they come back, be able to speak to the fenestrations on the building as brought up by Commission Member Sargent, and also talk more about how this ties into the greater context in the master plan of your redevelopment or development, I should say.
I would only add, both those areas, the concrete wall and the pit, or as you come down, those are important elements we want to be addressed. But also, Commission Member Fluker, you also asked that we see an overall kind of integrated public art plan too.
Yeah. Yes. And that goes back to the whole map. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Additional comments or questions? No, so I'll only say thank you to the team, full team. Sincere thank you for the listening to the last time, the development. It's an extraordinary project, and we will be your partner in taking it all the way through. So thank you. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Slight.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. I think we are done, except for director. If there's anything from the director, do you have anything?
I do, it's very quick. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
There's a lot of shit happening.
Give us one moment as,
Thank you, guys.
Are saying the names.
Like the one that goes up the next. Like. It happens at Stokes.
Appreciate the tech.
I just was really enjoying it.
You've seen this where like we see people wear their glasses. It'll change. Don't interrupt. I've been in my.
Yeah.
It's not just seamless glass. Like
Yeah.
that's just presented as
Just
like
like, you know, you
really serious glass. And I know some of the stuff is just one car and then behind there's other scenes. I turned up curious.
Yeah, right.
Coming in.
Okay, thank you. Okay, very, very quick update, just on behalf of the department. This is conference season, and so there were so many conferences happening. I just got back from the National Planning Conference in Minneapolis, which was fantastic. So many other cities are going through their 2040 comprehensive planning process, so I really felt like I personally learned a lot, and this body will be guiding us through that process, and hope to share more about that as we develop our thoughts. Really proud to share that our staff will be sharing and presenting at several upcoming conferences. I mentioned the APA Ohio Planning and Zoning Conference last time. So Dan Schinkel will be representing us for the Cleveland's North Coast Lakefront, in addition to Allison Love from GCP. Who else is a part of that? Full Frame Initiative.
Yeah, and all of our project partners.
Project partners. Yep. Adam Davenport and Kelly Mersman will be discussing the Franklin Avenue roundabouts, the building community roundabouts, and how that community process was both exciting and also challenging, and how we kind of came to the right compromises there. The International Making Cities Livable Conference in Rhode Island is also another one we'll be presenting the North Coast Master Plan and that process. So it's called Creating Public Spaces That Center Equity and Wellbeing through New Tech. And our partners Full Frame Initiative are really working on what is community-owned data when it comes to community engagement. Because oftentimes we collect the data, kind of goes away, or doesn't live on, or it's kind of hidden away, requiring a public records request. And this effort is really meant to make sure that all those comments are live in perpetuity and can be used for any future projects as well.
Terrific, can I add one point?
30 seconds, yes.
Neighborhood Connections is joining us there too, a community partner that really made North Coast community engagement worthwhile and very thorough with the community. And one of our community members who was a credible messenger to assist us with community engagement is coming along with that conference presentation. So we hope to continue pushing what best management practices are around community engagement, and making sure that residents really feel valued.
Shout out to Ward 5 resident Twyla Norris, who was essential in conducting surveys. Ward 14 ended up getting almost 300 surveys in addition in both English and Spanish, which is great. Two more quick ones. Midwest Regional Sustainability Summit is coming up on May 2nd. I'll be on a panel talking about transforming transit in Ohio, specifically talking about Amtrak and the potential for Cleveland being an Amtrak destination and hub along several different lines. Ohio Chapter American Society of Landscape Architects, ASLA. I'll be joined with the director from Cincinnati as well as the administrator from Columbus to talk about our design forward thinking and how ASLA and our cities can partner together to encourage these three major cities and how we're growing in Ohio. That's it. Thank you to the commission for your very astute comments today. It's very, very good discussion, so I really appreciate, on behalf of all the staff too, just your attunement to everything that we're working on.
Right. Meeting adjourned. Madam Chair. No. I missed.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Are we adjourned?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.